The man was a die-hard fan of a Demon King training game. The whole point of the game was simple: raise a weak little Demon King into the strongest being alive. But one day, the developers suddenly released a DLC that sent the entire player base into a frenzy. The DLC actually let players take the role of a sleazy blonde punk and corrupt the once pure Demon King root. The moment the man heard about it, he joined the other players online and started tearing into the developers. Then, without warning, a blinding white light burst out of his computer and swallowed him whole. When he opened his eyes again, the building in front of him looked so familiar, it sent shivers down his spine. Before he could even process what was happening, the butler standing before him respectfully addressed him as the Honorable Lord Nan. That was when the man recognized him. This was Kane, the butler from the game's opening scene. Once inside the manor, Kane did exactly as he had in the game, bowing deeply to Nan. I never imagined someone would willingly teach our Demon King. For that, you have my deepest gratitude. Everything felt too real to deny, and Nan finally understood that he had truly entered the world of the game. Meanwhile, deep inside the manor, the maids were helping the young Demon King get ready. The Demon King was clearly nervous because she was about to meet the mentor who had agreed to teach her. One of the maids gently encouraged her, telling her to hold her head high. After all, who could possibly dislike such an adorable Demon King? Before long, Nan followed the game's sequence and arrived before Seer. Siri was once the sole heir of the second-ranked Demon King in the demon world. But 2 years ago, a disastrous war took her father's life, along with nearly all of his most loyal demons. And so, at only 5 years old, Seer was forced to take the Demon King's throne. From that day on, her family's power collapsed, and their ranking in the demon world fell all the way to 72nd. At this rate, even her title as Demon King would soon be in danger. Just as Nan was about to show her proper respect, Siri suddenly trotted up to him and bowed with all the seriousness she could muster. "Please speak freely, mentor. Treat me as your student, not your Demon King." Seeing that earnest little expression, Nan almost instinctively reached out and gently patted her head. "From now on, just call me teacher. I'll raise you into the greatest Demon King in history." But after Nan returned to his room, it felt as if his whole world had come crashing down on him. What had he just done? Had he seriously agreed to become Siri's mentor? He really was obsessed with the game. He had seen every ending and even dug out every hidden piece of content. But clicking choices with a mouse and protecting someone in real life were two completely different things. Worse yet, he couldn't even use magic. So how was he supposed to teach a Demon King? Nan had originally planned to refuse as politely as possible. Maybe he got carried away after seeing Seer in person. Or maybe he simply knew too well how much pain awaited her. As Nan struggled to figure out what to do next, a stream of golden light suddenly flowed into his eyes. In the next instant, the shattered memories of this body's original owner flooded into his mind. Once those memories returned, Nan realized that this body had once belonged to a powerful demon. That changed everything. With this power, he no longer had to panic. He truly could stand beside Seer. He might even be able to reach the ideal ending he had always dreamed of. The next day, Nan brought Seer outside for her first lesson. Holding class outdoors felt much more relaxing, and it was easier for her to stay focused. That was when Nan noticed the little bear Seer was holding. He had never seen that item anywhere in the game. When Nan asked about it, Seer told him it was her only friend. Nahin immediately realized there had to be some hidden story behind that bear. He would have to look into it later. Since today is our first day, we'll start with the basics of mana control. "What about the history of the demon realm?" Seer asked. Kane said I should finish my other basic subjects before learning mana control. Nan calmly explained that Kane was simply far too rigid. If Sire wanted to protect her people as a Demon King, she first needed to understand what power truly was. That was why she had to begin with mana control, martial arts, and imperial sovereignty. Sire actually liked that arrangement, but she also said earnestly that she had already learned everything about imperial rule. That made Nan curious. If she had already learned it all, why was she still so overly polite when speaking to other demons? So Nan snapped his fingers. In that case, let's put it into practice. Imperial studies only matter when you actually apply them. After that, Nan personally made Sira a training diary. The diary would help her develop the qualities of a ruler. If she completed her homework properly, Nan would reward her with pudding. After all, in this game, affection points were a crucial factor. Once the homework was arranged, Nan shifted the lesson back to mana itself. The amount of mana each person possessed was fixed from birth, and that stored mana gathered into a mana core. So what determined how much mana someone could actually use? Demons, half-demons, and dragons all had circuits inside their bodies. Did Seer know what those circuits were for? Siri immediately answered that she knew. Those circuits allowed them to use mana. Nan nodded. Correct. To be more precise, circuits were the pathways through which mana flowed. The more circuits someone had, the more mana could pass through them. So the amount of mana you can actually use depends on how many circuits you have. What a clever girl, Nan praised. You learn fast. Stored mana might be decided at birth, but the number of circuits could be increased through effort. In the next moment, the mana gathered in Nan's palm shot straight into the sky. If you have abundant stored mana and work diligently to expand your circuits, you can release a massive amount of mana all at once. Just like this. The sight instantly stunned Kane, who had been watching from the side. Power on that level was far beyond anything an ordinary third-rate tutor could show. Because of that, Kane became even more convinced that with Nan's help, Seer would definitely grow stronger. Before long, news that Demon King Seer had gained a mentor spread throughout the demon world. However, the higher-ranked Demon Kings, those ranked in the 60s, didn't care about it at all. But to certain people, that seemingly boring piece of news was extremely interesting. One of them was the 71st ranked Demon King, who stood just one rank above Siri. Meanwhile, Seer had already made up her mind to complete the homework Nan had assigned. So she went to find the maid she usually got along with best. Then, Seer deliberately put on a stern little expression and shouted, "Begin cleaning at once." The sudden change in attitude left the maid rather confused. The problem was, she was already cleaning. She was simply doing it with magic. At that moment, the maid also noticed the training diary in Siri's hands. She immediately understood that the mentor must have given the Demon King an order to practice acting more like a true ruler. So the maid played along. Understood. You mean I should clean even more thoroughly? I shall obey your command. Seeing that her homework had been completed successfully, Seer became visibly excited. She turned and told the maid that she was going to class first, while the maid quietly smiled to herself. Her Majesty really is adorable. Before long, Siri came humming a cheerful little tune as she returned to Nan. Then, she happily told Nan that she had finished the homework he had assigned. So, Nan decided to reward her with a plush toy, similar to her little white bear. Siri's eyes lit up instantly, full of eager anticipation. But just then, her gaze shifted toward the butler standing nearby. Kane was frowning, his expression extremely serious. Siri immediately lowered her head and said in disappointment that it was fine, even if she didn't get a gift. Just like in the game, the castle's real problem was still its finances. They even had to worry over the cost of a single plush toy, so it seems Nan had no choice but to step in himself. Nan crouched down and patiently asked her, "Until you're ready to manage it yourself, may I temporarily take over the castle's finances?" Seeing Seer's blank little expression, Nan knew she still didn't understand what those words truly meant. Then, Nan turned to the butler. "Don't misunderstand. I'm taking over the finances, not because you lack ability, but because everyone has their own strengths. So please allow me to do what I'm good at. In the near future, I will make Siri stand above every Demon King." As Nan spoke, Siri's small hand gently grabbed the edge of his clothes. Then she looked up at him and said earnestly, "Teacher, I believe in you, so please earn lots and lots of money for us." Nan smiled inwardly. Trusting him was the right choice, because very soon, a gold mine would come walking right to their door. After that, Nan continued teaching Siri how to control her mana. Although she had very few circuits, her mana capacity was beyond imagination. For a Demon King ranked 72nd and practically at the bottom, that kind of potential was unheard of. At this rate, Nan did not have to worry too much about their progress. He did want to push her a little further, but Seer's stamina was simply too low. So Nan said, "Good work. Rest for a bit, then we'll continue with physical training." A little while later, Seer began her running practice, though she was still holding the little white bear in her arms. Nan took the chance to ask Kane, "Why is Siri so attached to Little White?" Kane told him that it was a gift from the previous Demon King for Seer's 5th birthday. In other words, it was a keepsake from her father, which was why she treasured it so deeply and carried it everywhere. The former Demon King's death was undoubtedly a major turning point in Seer's story. But only once she grew strong enough to seek revenge would Nan tell her the full truth. Just then, one of Siri's servants came over and told them that a letter had arrived from the 71st layer. The 71st layer? What demands do they want to make this time? Kane's concern was completely understandable. In the demon world, even a difference of one rank represented a massive gap in strength, military power, and wealth. But Kane did not need to be so afraid, because this was exactly the opportunity Nan had been waiting for all along. Soon, the day arrived for the Demon King of the 71st layer to visit. Based on Nan's instincts alone, Even the coachman driving at the front was no ordinary figure. Before long, Citri, the demon king of the 71st layer, stepped down from the carriage. Nahan lowered his head and offered her the proper respect. Citri looked at him with interest. To think you could see through Baphomet's disguise. You must be no ordinary man. Nan replied calmly. Would an ordinary man ever become the demon king's mentor? Citri smiled faintly. What an interesting fellow. You make a fair point. At that moment, Cain was visibly shocked. Under the hierarchy of the demon world, how could Nan dare act so rudely toward a higher-ranked demon king? May I ask why your majesty has come? Nan asked. You're rather impatient. Can't we talk inside? Citri replied. I'm afraid not, unless you have a proper reason. My apologies, but this is Lady Seer's territory. Even with your high status, you cannot simply enter another demon king's domain as you please. Citri immediately felt her displeasure rising. Had even someone like him started looking down on her now? In the past, a man like this would have already been. Thinking that far, Citri could only suppress her anger and state her reason. As the ruler of the 71st layer, I have matters to discuss with the ruler of the 72nd layer. At that moment, her coachman saw through Nan's intention. Nan was using Citri's own title to remind everyone present that Seer was indeed a true demon king. Citri then ordered, Baphomet, wait here. This will not take long. After that, Nan led her into the hall. The moment Citri sat down, she asked, when is that little girl coming? I have urgent financial matters to discuss with her. Then she looked at Nan. What is this attitude supposed to be? Are you trying to charm me with that confidence? Nan answered calmly, I control the finances here. If you have business, you can discuss it with me. Citri sneered inwardly. He couldn't even take his eyes off her. Men really were easy to handle. Citri then said, during the recent incident caused by human adventurers, many of my soldiers died while assisting the 72nd layer. Therefore, you must pay compensation, as well as additional manpower expenses. Nan asked back. Then whose idea was it to send those soldiers? Mine, of course, Citri scoffed. With your forces alone, you could never have stopped the humans, could you? After hearing that, Nan said flatly, really? Then you truly are a complete piece of trash. Citri's face darkened. What? What did you just say? Nan knew he had heard her perfectly. This woman truly dared to use that attitude, while using her higher rank to demand compensation. In the next instant, the enraged Citri stomped down and shattered the coffee cup in front of her. Have you lost your mind? Nan remained calm. Are you this angry because I called you trash? Facing the terrifying pressure pouring from her body, Nan raised his hand and protected the servant kneeling nearby. You forced unnecessary troops onto a weak demon king, and now you're demanding payment for it. If that doesn't make you trash, then what does? Citri's anger finally erupted. Your disrespect knows no bounds. You brought this on yourself. In the next moment, her attack was already flying straight toward Nan. Nan had originally planned to handle this quietly and leave her some dignity. But now, it seemed he had to take a different approach. Then, Nan lightly snapped his fingers in the air. The flames that had been rushing toward him vanished in an instant. The sight made Citri shoot to her feet in shock. Nan said calmly, we are all civilized demons. Why not settle this through conversation? I have a rather interesting proposal for you. Citri said coldly. A nameless nobody like you dares to offer me a proposal? Nan replied evenly, of course, because I know you can't refuse. After all, it concerns the seal placed upon you. Your Majesty once held the 12th seat, yet your power declined because of that seal. If you only came here to repeat what everyone already knows, then get out. Nan continued. The reason you cannot conquer higher layers right now is that the sealing stone binding your power is embedded in a layer ruled by a middle-rank demon king, or perhaps an even higher existence. So why don't we make a deal? I will help you break the chains sealing your power. Citri stared at him. And how exactly do you plan to help me? Nan simply looked back at her. You already sighed a fraction of my power. After a brief hesitation, Citri ultimately signed a peace treaty with Nan. For both sides, the contract came with no real loss. If anything, it allowed them to benefit together. The power Nan had shown earlier was overwhelming, even compared to Citri at her peak. If that was truly only a fraction of his strength, even just 1/10 of it, then this gamble was worth taking. When Nan also signed the contract, the blood of both parties immediately seeped into it. This meant both sides had to strictly obey the terms written in the contract. Neither side could go back on it. Nan turned to Ciri. Ciri, from this day forward, Her Majesty Citri will assist us. Ciri immediately thanked her with full sincerity. Thank you, Lady Citri. Don't mention it, Citri replied. Let's get along from now on, kid. Nan's eyes turned cold. We are allies now, and you still dare call a demon lord kid? It seems your Majesty Citri will need to relearn basic etiquette from the beginning. Citri finally had no choice but to give in. Fine, you don't have to teach me. I'll do it. Let's get along from now on, Lady Sierra. Nan smiled faintly. See? You're actually quite good at it. You should have done that from the start. Now, I'll explain how we'll fulfill the terms of the contract. From this moment on, Her Majesty Citri will also become my student. Those words immediately irritated Citri. What nonsense are you spouting? Nan remained calm. I know your Majesty was once a rather famous figure among demon kings, but right now you are nothing more than an ordinary demon king with mediocre power, mediocre influence, and nearly bottom-tier status, and so little presence that people are starting to forget you. Citri's mouth twitched. Did you really have to go that far? You're the one asking for my help, so what's with that expression? Nan continued. You probably believe your growth has already reached its limit, and that your only remaining option is to reclaim the power that was sealed away. But what I'm telling you is this. Even now, you can still become stronger. In the game, Citri continued chasing the power she had lost, grew stronger through that journey, and remained Seer's unwavering ally from beginning to end. Citri said coldly, You shouldn't joke with a demon king. Nan answered calmly, I would never joke about something like this. Either way, we must begin by fulfilling the contract. You may return for today. Visit again when you have time. Citri frowned. You want me to come to you? I'm a demon king. Obviously, you should be the one coming to me. Just then, Seer suddenly hugged Nan tightly. No, he is my teacher. Nan spread his hands. You heard her. There's nothing I can do, right? Citri sighed. Fine, once a week should be enough, yes? Nan nodded. If that satisfies your Majesty, then we'll do that. Citri suddenly realized something. What is that supposed to mean? Are you saying I'll be the one getting impatient to see you? Nan only said lightly. Who knows? You'll understand soon enough. The alliance with Citri had succeeded, but there were still problems to solve. A few days later, Nan told Citri that he couldn't continue teaching her for the time being. He was too busy reorganizing her troops and simply had no time to spare. So, if Her Majesty Citri could personally lend a hand, he would be deeply grateful. Then, Nan turned to Seer. Your Majesty Seer, I have one more unreasonable request. Would you personally deliver the final blow? Greetings, Commander Ale. The man then looked at Nan. Lord Mentor, why have you come together with Her Majesty? Her Majesty looks as adorable as ever today. Nan answered. We're here to see the place where Seer will learn swordsmanship in the future. While we're at it, we'll also settle a few other matters. Deputy Commander Varuna couldn't help asking. So, Lord Nan, establishing command and control is just something you handle? On the side? Nan replied flatly. Maintaining that kind of order should be obvious, shouldn't it, Deputy Commander Varuna? Varuna froze. Obvious? Have you actually commanded troops before? I mean no disrespect, Lord Nan, but uniting soldiers from different factions is no simple task. Nan said calmly. Is that so? Then why don't you watch how I do it? Before long, Nan led them to the training ground. Deputy Commander Varuna was highly skilled and deeply loyal, but his loyalty belonged only to Seer. That was why Nan intended to use this chance to make sure Varuna would obey his commands completely from this point forward. Nan took the initiative and extended his hand. A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Emsalon. I am Seer's mentor. Emsalon answered coldly. I've heard plenty about you. You're the one who stole Her Majesty Citri away from us, aren't you? Nan didn't deny it. I did, and I believe it was the right choice. After all, when you had nowhere else to go, I was the one who took you in. Hearing that, Emsalon shouted in anger. You think being a mentor gives you the right to say whatever you want. Seeing that attitude, Nan tightened his grip during the handshake. In the next instant, Emsalon pulled his hand away in pain. Nan said coldly, Emsalon, watch your tone. From now on, the master you are meant to serve is standing right here, yet you dare challenge the mentor who is training your new master. Is that what Citri taught you? Emsalon snapped. Are you insulting Her Majesty Citri? Nan looked at him calmly. So you still consider Citri your master? Then look carefully. Your master is no longer Citri. It is Lady Seer, and she is standing right here. Emsalon instinctively looked at Seer, and one thought flashed through his mind. She's adorable. But wait, that wasn't the point. He then gritted his teeth and said, My only master is Her Majesty's Citri. Nan gave a slight nod. At least you have some backbone. Since you insist on clinging to that belief, I have no other choice. In the next instant, Nan raised his hand and unleashed gravity magic, pinning everyone present firmly to the ground. Even Deputy Commander Varuna clearly felt the overwhelming pressure pressing down on him. Nan said coldly, I have no need to keep disobedient dogs around. this is your final chance. Will you cling to the past and disappear here? Or will you place your hopes in a brand new future? Salon gritted his teeth and answered, I swore loyalty to Her Majesty Citri, so I must obey her orders. Hearing that satisfactory answer, Nan snapped his fingers. Loyalty like that may actually prove useful. After the snap, Nan lifted the gravity, pressing everyone down. Citri immediately scolded them in anger. You idiots, why do you insist on disobeying and making trouble for me? You know Sire and I are allies now, don't you? Lady Citri, one of them replied. But that alliance is only on paper. Citri cut him off coldly. Shut up, it is a real alliance. I intend for this relationship to last. That alliance is essential for the war that is coming. Everyone immediately lowered their heads. Understood, Your Majesty. We were disrespectful. Citri frowned. I already told you, I am no longer your ruler. Say it again. Who are you? They answered in unison. Understood. We are Lady Seer's army. Seeing them obey so cleanly, left both the commander and Seer a little surprised. Nan looked calmly at Citri. See? I told you. If you had stepped in earlier, this would have been much easier. When Seer noticed Nan's hand gesture, she also gave Citri a thumbs up. Now that the most troublesome matter had been handled, it was time to begin Citri's training. Before Nan could start, he told Seer to wait nearby for a moment. But Seer's small hand kept gripping his clothes tightly, refusing to let go. No matter how Nan tried to coax her, she wouldn't release him. Clearly, she didn't want to be separated from him. Nan sighed inwardly. Was this what people called a child's stubbornness? There really was no helping her. So he picked Ciri up and let her sit on his shoulders. At that moment, Citri, who had been watching from the side, finally snapped. You said you were going to train me. When exactly are we starting? Nan replied calmly, Don't rush. Even like this, we can still train. The moment he finished speaking, Nan began releasing his own mana. Dense, almost tangible power spread through the air, blocking out even the sun above. Nan said lightly, Today's lesson is simple. If you can land even one hit on me, you pass. Hearing that absurd statement, Citri thought Nan had to be joking. Could this kind of training really be useful? Nan simply said, Don't worry, the training intensity will absolutely meet your expectations. In the next instant, a massive pressure crashed down, forcing Citri to her knees. Nan looked down at her and said calmly, There is one thing I am absolutely certain of. I am stronger than Your Majesty ever was in the past. So try to break free from my mana restraint, then find a way to attack me. That terrifying pressure drove Citri flat against the ground, leaving her unable to say a single word. To Nan, a stronger Citri would become the sharpest weapon in Seer's hands. Seer's personal strength was important, of course, but with Citri's help, she could expand her influence and power far more easily. Nan continued provoking her. Your Majesty, if this small amount of mana is enough to make you tremble, how do you expect to accomplish anything? If you feel insulted, then go ahead and give up. The layer where Citri's power was sealed was at least a middle-rank territory. If she wanted to survive there, she first had to adapt to overwhelming high-level mana pressure. And during that process, the circuits inside her body would naturally grow stronger as well, which was an added benefit. Sitting on Nan's shoulders, Seer whispered, Teacher, Lady Citri looks like she's having a hard time. Of course, Nan replied. That is the whole point of training. You should watch carefully too, because one day you will go through the exact same training. Time quickly passed, and evening arrived. After spending hours under Nan's mana pressure, Citri was drenched in sweat, but she still refused to give up, dragging her body forward little by little, trying to get close enough to land even one hit on him. Nan thought to himself that she truly deserved her former rank as the 12th seat. She was already starting to adapt. Maybe she would clear this training faster than he had expected. Just then, during dinner, Sire asked Nan to teach her more, but they had already held a lesson that morning. If she pushed herself too hard, she would only end up collapsing from exhaustion. Still, what teacher could possibly refuse eyes that eager to learn? So Nan simply snapped his fingers. In the next instant, the mana restraint binding Citri vanished. Nan said lightly, You can rest for a bit now. The moment Citri heard that, she rolled onto her back and started gasping for air. Nan turned to Seer. Seer, tell me what you learned today. Seer answered seriously, I learned how to use the mana floating in the air. With it, we can cast spells that our own mana alone wouldn't be enough to perform. Nan continued, Then how do you catch the mana freely floating in the air? Hearing that question, Seer poked her chin and thought hard. Then, she answered adorably, I can ask it for help. Nan smiled and asked, But how will you ask it for help? You've never spoken to mana before. Don't worry. Our own mana can communicate with it, like this. First, lend out a small portion of your mana. Let it become friends with the mana scattered around us. Then guide that mana here. After that, you can borrow the strength of those friends to cast even stronger magic. Nan looked at Sire. So Sire, do you want to try it now? Following Nan's instructions, Sire stretched her small hand into the air. Before long, a faint stream of mana began to glow at her fingertip. Nan nodded. That's it. Slowly draw the mana out. At the same time, what was happening on their side caught Citri's attention as she rested nearby. Citri was stunned. Was this really the mana of a 7-year-old child? It seemed she had to protect this alliance at all costs. Soon, the mana floating in the air was gradually drawn towards Sire's own mana. Nan then told her to pull her mana back. Siri whispered, "This feels so strange." Nan explained, "What you see in front of you now is the mana that was floating in the air just a moment ago. You still can't use this spell on your own, because your mana isn't enough yet, but we can try it once by using part of your own mana together with all the mana we just gathered. First, picture a blazing fire burning brightly in your mind. Then release it naturally, just like this. Now, do it the way I showed you." Just then, Citri rushed over and interrupted them. "What exactly are you teaching her? That is an ancient spell that was supposed to be lost." Nan paused inwardly. This was the first time he had heard that what he was using was actually something like that. But to avoid giving himself away, Nan said calmly, "Of course I know what this is." Citri pressed him. "How do you know about it?" Nan replied lightly, "Who knows? Right now I need to finish the lesson first." Nan turned back to Sire. "All right, Sire. Can you perform what you just saw?" Under Nan's guidance, Sire quietly closed her eyes. Soon, a name made of flames appeared above her fingertip. Nan praised her gently. "You did very well. One day, there will be times when you need to use mana like this, so you must practice drawing out and condensing mana often. Understood?" At that moment, Citri clenched her fists angrily behind him. But Nan had already noticed the movement, so he warned her. "Your Majesty, you may only attack me during training." Citri immediately snapped back. "What are you talking about? That's not what I meant. Can you teach me that ancient magic too?" Nan answered without hesitation. "Absolutely not." Citri frowned. "Why? I'm your student too," Nan said calmly, "because I don't trust you enough yet." But in the next moment, Nan realized this might be a chance to squeeze more benefits out of Citri. So he added, "If our relationship becomes a little closer, I may consider it." When Citri heard the words, "a little closer," her face instantly turned red. She struggled internally for a moment, before gritting her teeth. Fine, it was all for the sake of getting stronger anyway. Then Citri turned her face away and awkwardly asked, "So, what type do you like?" Nan fell silent for a moment. "I think our conversation is heading in two very different directions." "That's not what I meant. I was talking about the trust relationship between the 72nd layer and the 71st layer. Citri froze. "So that's what you meant? You should have said that clearly from the start. Forget what I just said." Seer saw the whole exchange from the side, looking completely confused and having no idea what had just happened. Time quickly reached night, and Nan returned to his quarters to rest. Since the body Nan had possessed belonged to a great demon, it wasn't strange that it knew things like ancient magic. Even in the game, the true identity of this great demon god was almost never revealed. He was only described as an ancient being who had existed since the distant past, with unfathomable power and a mystery surrounding him from head to toe. What truly bothered Nan was that this body seemed to remain wary of the other great demon gods. Perhaps he shouldn't waste too much energy on things he still knew nothing about. After all, he already had more than enough problems to deal with. He would just solve them one by one. And right now, the most urgent issue was territorial expansion. It was still too early to attack the human world, and the 71st layer was Citri's territory, so that was off limits as well. The 70th layer, however, was ruled by Demon King Enro. If Nan joined forces with Citri, there might be a way in. The next day arrived soon enough. Nan summoned the commander to meet him, but Seer insisted on coming along as well. "Commander Ale, I know you are busy. Thank you for answering my summons." "After all," Ale replied, "you said you needed my opinion." Nan nodded. "That's right. I want to discuss territorial expansion." Ale immediately understood. "What? You mean taking the 70th layer, correct? That will be difficult. Even if we join forces with Her Majesty's Citri, we will still be at a disadvantage in raw power. If you intend to launch a full-scale war, I strongly advise extreme caution." At that moment, Nan handed him a report. "From what you just said, it sounds like there may still be a chance as long as we avoid a frontal confrontation, right? So, as a commander, what do you think?" Personally, I would say this is a fairly good card to play. After reading Nan's report, Ale quickly concluded that they could carry out a covert operation and select troops skilled in infiltration. They should also gather the scattered soldiers first and form an independent legion. That way, they could suppress the petty conflicts and complaints between the different units. Not only that, but it would also make the newly absorbed soldiers truly loyal to Her Majesty's seer. Once those soldiers realized that Siri had created a new legion for them, they would naturally begin to feel a sense of belonging and affection toward her. After Nan asked Seer for her opinion, she firmly agreed with the plan. Before long, Citri also heard the news and decided to come help with the operation. At that moment, she was still undergoing Nan's mana pressure training. Just then, Seer suddenly ran down from her seat. Then, she lay down right beside Citri, saying she wanted to train together with her because it wouldn't feel as tiring if they did it together. Seeing Siri act like that, Nan could only think that she really was an adorable child. The sudden scene clearly surprised Citri as well. But when she saw Siri's innocent little face, Citri simply couldn't bring herself to refuse. At that moment, Nan reminded Siri that the little bear she was holding had gotten dirty. But it was fine. They could just wash it. Nan gently asked if she wanted to go take a bath with the bear and clean it up. After Kane took Siri away, Citri looked at Nan and said, "You seem rather used to dealing with children." Nan replied, "It's not that I'm used to it. I just constantly think about what I can do to help Seer accept her identity more easily, then act accordingly." Then Nan looked at Citri. "As for your Majesty, Citri, you also seem to act without thinking quite often. Let's pause the training for now and continue our earlier discussion." Citri said, "As for the 70th layer, I'll do what I can to help. If I said I was doing it for that child Siri, you probably wouldn't believe me, would you?" The truth is, I had already been preparing for war before this. Nan's mind stirred. In the original timeline, this event was still supposed to be far in the future. Had his interference caused it to happen earlier? Still, he had no reason to refuse, so he asked, "Then how exactly do you plan to help me?" Citri frowned. "You really are shameless. Just tell me what you want me to do." So Nan told her his plan. Citri froze. "What? You want me to go and pretend to start a fight first?" Nan said lightly, "You catch on quickly. As expected, of your Majesty, Citri." Citri narrowed her eyes. "And why exactly should I risk myself as bait?" Seeing this, Nan handed her a set of documents. After reading them, Citri immediately understood what he meant. So Andro openly insulted Aaron, and now a rift has formed between them. Aaron is one of the largest powers on the 70th layer. I knew Andro was an idiot, but I didn't expect him to be this blatant about it. With Aaron's temper, there's no way he'll accept an apology. "This is a gift from heaven." Nan nodded. "Exactly. I plan to bring Aaron over to our side. We'll send someone from our camp under the title of negotiation representative." Citri narrowed her eyes. "I think I already know who you're planning to send, but how will the benefits be divided?" Nan answered calmly. "Territory, funds, everything split 50-50. What do you think?" Citri looked surprised. "I didn't expect that. I thought you would try to squeeze out a bigger share." Nan replied lightly, "We are allies after all. The alliance with Citri must be maintained. That price is nothing." Citri still looked doubtful. "I'm honestly starting to find you suspicious." Nan only said, "Believe it or not, that is your Majesty's decision." Then Nan cast his restraint spell again and continued their earlier training. He looked at Citri. "Your Majesty, let us continue the training." Citri's face stiffened. This man was simply far too cruel. Before long, after Kame took Seer away and helped her clean up, Seer rushed back to find Nan. Nan picked her up at once. It seemed the obedient Seer and her little bear had both been washed clean. But Nan quickly noticed something strange. "Seer, did you dye your hair red when I wasn't looking?" At that moment, Kane explained to Nan that the Devata clan is different from other demons. They could store external mana in their hair, which was why they were so gifted in magic. When Nan taught Siri how to use external mana that day, she seemed to have naturally stored some of it. Nan asked, "So if she uses that mana, her hair will return to normal?" Kane nodded. "More or less. In fact, the late Demon King Sale once stored so much external mana that more than half of his hair turned red. If Seer could store external mana, then even as she was now, she would be able to cast spells that consumed enormous amounts of mana." Nan looked at Seer. "It seems you'll need to practice drawing mana from the outside world more often from now on, Seer." Then Nan turned to Kame. "By the way, Kane, where is the commander?" Meanwhile, somewhere on the 70th layer ruled by Andro, Ale moved at incredible speed, slipping past the sleeping elite soldiers. The soldiers were more well-trained than she had expected, But fortunately, they didn't cause any trouble. Before long, the covert squad successfully passed through the dangerous area. After that, they gathered in a forest. One of the subordinates looked toward a distant cabin and whispered, "That cabin doesn't look suspicious at first glance." "The commander, why are we here?" Ale answered, "Her Majesty wants the 70th layer. To make that happen, we need to recruit Aaron's forces." The subordinate couldn't help asking, "Is that really possible?" Ale said coldly, "We are soldiers. Our job is to obey orders." Then the group quickly approached the cabin in the distance. But just then, a guard suddenly appeared at the entrance and interrupted their plan. The guard said coldly, "Identify yourselves." Ale thought to herself that this must be one of Aaron's men, and he was far better trained than she had expected. Ale said, "We are envoys of Her Majesty Demon King Seer." At that moment, Aaron walked out of the room. He looked at the group and asked which one of them was the representative. Hearing that, Ale removed the mask from her face. "That would be me." The other side was immediately shocked. "Wait, are you Ale, one of the 4 swords of Sail?" Another person gasped. "Weren't all the 4 swords of Sail supposed to be dead?" Ale said calmly, "I abandoned that title long ago. Now, I am the blade of Her Majesty Queen Seer." Aaron stared at her and asked, "So Demon King Seer intends to break into the 70th layer? Do you truly think that's possible?" Ale didn't waver. "Nothing is impossible. Because with only Her Majesty's Citri and myself, we can defeat someone like Enro." Aaron sneered. "That confidence is rare. Coming from you, I can accept it. But war is another matter. Even if you unite all the forces of the 71st and 72nd layers, you still can't match the 70th layer. Isn't that exactly why you came here? Because you need a guide like me." Ale said in a low voice, "We can't reveal every card we have, but I can tell you one thing. To Her Majesty Siri, even 100 people like me would still be unable to put a single scratch on the one standing beside her." Aaron frowned. "You must be joking. At your peak, you were said to possess strength equal to a demon king." Ale asked back, "Do I look like someone who would joke in a place like this?" Aaron said, grimly, "If someone that powerful is truly on your side, then you don't need my help at all. You could simply wipe out the entire 70th layer." Ale answered, "We can't alert the higher layers just to deal with the 70th. If you don't believe me, you are free to report today's meeting to Andro. But if you do, don't expect to walk away unharmed." Aaron stared at her. "Is that a threat, or are you testing me? If it were anyone else, I would doubt it. But I have personally seen the true power of the 4 swords." Ale said, "Allow the army of the 72nd layer to pass through your territory and help us suppress Andro when the time comes." Aaron immediately understood. "So Citri will also come here and cause a scene, right?" Ale nodded. "Correct. When that happens, you will receive a title and compensation equal to your contribution. Will you accept?" After that, Commander Ale reported the successful negotiation to Nan. Nan praised her for completing the mission beautifully, but also reminded her to prepare for battle. At that moment, Nan noticed that she looked like she wanted to say something. So he told her to speak freely. After a brief silence, Ale finally spoke. "Lord Nan, forgive my rudeness, but I have a question. Why did you choose to become Her Majesty Queen Siri's mentor? Someone like you shouldn't be serving in such a humble position. Compared to the abilities you have shown, it feels like a complete waste of your talent. Why would a person like you choose the lowest ranked 72nd layer? From a practical standpoint, I simply can't understand it." Nan said calmly, "So you're worried I might have another motive, such as usurping the throne?" Ale didn't deny it. "Yes," she replied. "I can't say that possibility is zero." Nan knew that if he told her the truth, she would definitely think he was insane. But if he made up some cheap excuse, Ale didn't seem like the type to let it go easily. It seemed he had no choice but to honestly explain why he had fallen in love with this game. After all, it did sound interesting. A demon king I raised with my own hands. Someone who was once the weakest and most looked down upon existence. Just imagining the day she rules the entire demon world, I can't think of anything more exciting than that." Ale frowned slightly. "So you are saying this is purely to satisfy your own personal desire?" Nan answered honestly. "At first, yes. But now, I've gradually come to like this place. First of all, my favorite part is the adorable Demon King Seer. Then there is Kane, the unwavering and reliable strategist. Leah has a warm heart, enough that I can entrust the castle's internal affairs to her. Cecily is sharp when it comes to both work and dealing with people. And Mogul is one of the finest chefs in the demon world. Deputy Commander Varuna can be a little rebellious at times, but when it comes to ability and loyalty, he is flawless. On top of that, we also have a powerful, loyal, resourceful, and remarkably beautiful commander. In short, I like the the 72nd layer. And I like the people here. In many ways, this place suits my tastes perfectly. So don't worry. As long as you don't abandon me, I will never be the one to betray you first. Ale said quietly. Thank you for answering such a disloyal question so sincerely. Nan corrected her. The one you should be loyal to isn't me, but Seer. You are more loyal to Seer than anyone else. You asked me that question for her sake, didn't you? As Ale left, warmth quietly spread through her chest. She couldn't help thinking that their queen was truly blessed to have such good people around her. Early the next morning, Seer came to play with Nan. However, Nan was in the middle of checking the accounts. Since she was already there, he figured he might as well give her a small economics lesson. Nan picked up a document and asked, "This says the crops were damaged because of a human adventure invasion. It is a petition requesting food aid because the people don't have enough to eat." Siri answered seriously, "We should give them food. There's still grain and meat left from last year in the warehouse." "Do we distribute it for free?" Nan asked. Siri shook her head. "No, we can give some as aid, but the rest should be sold at a very low price." Nan continued, "And if the farmers don't have money to buy food right now, what should we do?" Seer thought for a moment before answering. "In that case, we can use something called a grain loan system. The farmers can borrow grain at a very low interest rate, then repay it after the next harvest. That way, the food shortage is solved, and it isn't simple charity. The castle won't suffer a loss either." Just then, Leah walked in and greeted them. "Forgive me for interrupting your work, but it's time for Her Majesty Seer's snack." So Nan told Siri to go have her snack first. Seeing the way her expression instantly lit up, he could only think she was adorable. But just as Siri was about to leave, she suddenly stopped and turned back to look at Nan. Then she gave him an innocent, radiant smile and invited him to eat with her. Leah was surprised to hear that. As far as she knew, Seer had never shared her snacks with anyone before. In that case, Nan naturally had to go with her and try the dessert she loved so much. It seemed Nan had already earned quite a lot of Seer's trust. After all, she was willing to share her most precious snacks with him. Just then, Butler Kane walked over with a serious expression, holding a letter in his hand. He told Nan that the letter had come from the 71st layer. When Nan opened it, he saw that everything was ready. It seemed things were finally getting interesting. Meanwhile, Enro, the demon king of the 70th layer, also received news that the 71st layer had declared war. "Your Majesty, you must proceed with caution." "Caution?" Andro scoffed. "She is nothing but a clown, borrowing someone else's strength." "Even so, she was once a high-ranking demon king," the subordinate replied. "She may have lost her power, but she is still cunning." Andro asked coldly, "Are you saying she came prepared and has some hidden scheme? Who could she possibly rely on that I should fear?" His subordinate replied, "There are several possibilities. Rumor says the 71st layer and the 72nd layer recently formed an alliance. Also, according to our spies on the 71st layer, Citri has been visiting the 72nd layer frequently. From the looks of it, she is clearly working with the 72nd layer, in secret." Andro sneered. "How naive. Is she declaring war on me just because she trusts the 72nd layer?" The subordinate warned him. "The 72nd layer may be weak, but their commander is one of the 4 swords of Sail. We can't ignore that. There are also rumors that the new royal mentor of the 72nd layer is no ordinary demon." Andro shot back. If he is truly that remarkable, why would he lower himself to become a mere mentor on the 72nd layer? The subordinate continued. "Reports claim he was the one who formed the alliance and brought Citri over to their side. Therefore, we should launch a full frontal assault from the very beginning. With overwhelming military power, Citri and that commander will have no way to respond. Also, I have a plan that I would like to report to you privately." Andro smiled in satisfaction. "I like the way you think. Let those arrogant insects from the 71st and 72nd layers witness the difference in true strength. Bring Aaron to me at once." But just then, a soldier rushed in to report. "Your Majesty, terrible news. Demon King Citri's army has already set up camp in front of the castle." Hearing that, Andro immediately realized that Aaron had likely defected to Citri's side. His subordinate requested orders at once. "Your Majesty, please give the command. Our troops are already assembled. With one word from you, we will march out and crush them." Andro ordered coldly. "Good. March out immediately. Execute that foolish Citri and the traitor Aaron. All troops advance. Wipe out those arrogant fools in one strike." Meanwhile, for safety's sake, Nan had Siri put on a set of custom-made armor. "This might help you block a fatal attack. If you do well, I'll reward you with a slice of cake when we return." Nan looked into the distance. The operation should have already begun. "We should hurry as well." Kane bowed respectfully. "May you return victorious, Your Majesty." Before long, Nan brought Seer to a massive teleportation gate. Deputy Commander Varuna had already been waiting there. Her Majesty Citri has opened a temporary teleportation gate for us. You will arrive directly on the 70th layer. Nan thought to himself that Citri really was doing everything she could to support this alliance. Then, Nan led Seer into the teleportation gate. However, at the exact moment Nan entered the gate and left the castle, a group of masked men in black had already sneaked into the sky above the castle. Looking down at the nearly emptied castle, the masked leader couldn't help sneering. Are these fools serious? They practically emptied the entire castle. Looks like we need to teach them a lesson. These were the special forces led by Commander Duncan, one of Demon King Andro's subordinates. Their mission was to eliminate everyone left behind in the rear. Meanwhile, after Nan arrived on the 70th layer, Deputy Commander Varuna was still worried about the demon castle's safety. He said in a low voice, "I heard Andro has a squad dedicated to assassination operations. If they suddenly launch an attack on the castle." Before he could finish, Nan calmly told him that he didn't take such sneaky tactics seriously at all. At the same time, inside the demon castle, Butler Kane kicked one of the assassins away with a single strike. That overwhelming strength caught the elite troops completely off guard. They never imagined that the butler of a castle would possess such power. At that moment, Kane held one assassin in one hand and slowly spoke. "I don't recall this castle inviting any guests, so who exactly are you people?" Meanwhile, another assassin was thrown straight out of a castle window. Then Cecily, the maid, excitedly poked her head out from the window and told Kane that her area had already been cleared. Leah also walked out through the main entrance, dragging two intruding assassins with her. Even the one who had secretly slipped into the kitchen had been taken care of by Chef Magul. Everyone inside the castle was completely safe. The ones truly in trouble were these uninvited assassins. In truth, Nan had already known that when the previous Demon King was still alive, he had personally selected highly skilled warriors to prepare for sudden attacks. They rarely appeared in battle, so almost no one outside knew about them. At first, Nan hadn't been very interested in them, but their deployment, coordination, and tactical planning were nearly perfect. So he had to admit they were a qualified defensive force. Just then, Deputy Commander Varuna asked Nan for his next orders, but Nan told him, "You are mistaken about one thing. The person you should truly serve isn't me, but Demon King Seer standing right here." Varuna immediately lowered his head. "I will remember that. Your Majesty Seer, please give your command." Seer looked at Nan and said seriously, "Then I ask Teacher Nan to serve as our temporary commander." Nan smiled softly. "If that is Seer's request, I would be happy to." At that moment, Commander Ale had already made contact with Aaron's forces. Nan then ordered, "Varuna, join them now and provide support." Siri then looked at Nan with an innocent expression and asked where they were going next. Their next destination was none other than Her Majesty Citri's location. Meanwhile, Citri hadn't expected Aaron's forces to be this capable. Along the way, they had barely encountered any resistance. Baphomet said in a low voice, "Nan's intelligence network, his methods, even his strategies are terrifying. Yes, he is far too dangerous. If we act now, perhaps we can still." Before he could finish, Citri cut him off coldly. "Baphomet, if that were truly possible, do you think I would be sitting here like this? Don't touch that man, ever. One wrong move, and the 71st layer will be finished too. We will simply do our part and collect the reward that belongs to us," Citri concluded. Baphomet lowered his head at once. "As you command, Your Majesty." Looking at the battlefield blazing in the distance, Citri felt that this was quite a flashy opening. Before long, news that Aaron had infiltrated the castle reached Demon King Andro. Andro burned with rage. This war was never supposed to turn out like this. That treacherous bastard Aaron. Even killing him won't be enough to ease my anger. If he wants to come, then let him come. I will use this sword to cut them all down myself. Just then, a violent explosion shattered the castle gate. Andro sneered. "Looks like they're here. Speak of the devil." When the smoke cleared, Commander Ale appeared in the hall, leading Aaron and his elite troops. The castle guards reacted immediately and launched an attack at them. Ale said coldly, "So this is how the 70th layer treats its guests." Andro glared at Aaron. "Aaron, do you think you can swagger in here just because you have one of the 4 swords of Sail backing you? You damn bastard. I'll tear you apart with my own hands." Just then, Ale moved at incredible speed and split the guard blocking her path in 2. In the next instant, she firmly met the giant hammer Andro swung at her. Andro sneered, "You want to take the 70th layer? Then let me see for myself whether you have the strength to do it." The moment he finished speaking, the giant hammer in his hand came crashing toward Ale again. But with Ail's incredible reflexes, she managed to avoid disaster in time. Enro mocked her. You move fast. No wonder Sail's prey always slipped away from you. Then, how do you plan to deal with this? In the next moment, Enro suddenly turned around and tore off the head of one of his own subordinates. The sight left Commander Ail completely stunned. It seemed things were starting to get interesting. Then, from the neck of the headless subordinate, a massive serpent suddenly emerged. Its enormous abyss-like jaws rushed straight toward Ail. Meanwhile, on the other side, Nan had already arrived at the viewing platform, where Citri was watching the battle. Citri asked, I have done everything you asked, but can you really deal with Demon King Andro? Nan answered calmly, since I'm here, of course I'm confident. Then Nan handed Sire, who had been in his arms, over to Citri. He told Citri to protect Siri. If he brought her along, there would be too many things for him to worry about. Nan lowered his head and said to Sire, Sire, stay here and play with this friend for a while. I'll be right back. But just then, Nan suddenly sensed an aura that shouldn't have been there. He immediately realized that Commander Ail might be in danger, so he had to move right away. In the next instant, Nan vanished from the spot and teleported directly inside the castle. That lightning-fast movement made even Citri show a look of surprise. Just then, one of her subordinates came forward again and whispered, Your Majesty Citri, this is a good opportunity. Citri cut him off coldly. Silence. This is a test. He is testing whether I truly intend to protect this alliance. So don't get any foolish ideas. Treat Siri the same way you would treat me. Honestly, I've started to like that adorable little girl. Meanwhile, inside the Great Hall, Demon King Andro sent the deputy commander flying with a single hammer blow. The tremendous force smashed a huge crater into the wall behind him. Andro grinned viciously. Struggle all you want. This is all you can do anyway. I'll end everything right here. On the other side, Commander Ail was being tightly restrained by the giant serpent. The overwhelming power made her realize that this was no ordinary demon, but a monster close to the level of an upper-middle-ranked demon king. After struggling for a while, Ail finally ran out of strength and closed her eyes in despair. But when she opened them again, she found that the serpent in front of her had already lost its life. At that moment, after solving Ail's problem, Nan was already standing with one foot on Demon King Andro. Nan looked down at him. So you're the Demon King of the 70th layer. I came here to give you one chance to surrender. Andro, trapped beneath Nan's foot, was filled with disbelief. Nan's strength was beyond anything he could comprehend. That insane mana felt as if he were facing Daius, the #1 Demon King himself. But Andro couldn't understand why someone as powerful as Nan would join such a weak and pitiful little faction. Nan had no interest in answering him. He simply pulled a sharp blade from a vortex of mana. Seeing that, Andro immediately panicked and asked, What do you want? Money? Fame? I can give you all of it. Nan said coldly, The only thing I need is your head. Or rather, the highest position a demon king can ever reach. But with your strength, you clearly could never achieve it. And there is one more reason I will never forgive you. Someone who dares touch power he can never control doesn't deserve my mercy. In the next instant, Nan swung his sword and severed Andro's head. Then he turned toward everyone and declared, The war is over. Soldiers of Demon King Andro, lay down your weapons. Your master has fallen. Surrender now, and your lives will be spared. Resist, and there will be no mercy. Meanwhile, Nan's voice also reached Citri's camp. Citri couldn't help muttering, He was gone for what, a few minutes? And it's already over. Then again, if it's him, I suppose that isn't surprising. At that moment, Seer looked up at the sky with sparkling eyes. That's Teacher's voice. Ail lowered her head. Lord Nan, I apologize. It was my oversight. Nan calmly reassured her, Don't blame yourself too much, Commander. You've simply been away from a real battlefield for too long. That aura just now belonged to an existence that once stood above the demon world. But with Nan's fragmented memories, he still couldn't remember who it was. And more importantly, this wasn't even an event that had happened in the game. Nan reminded her, Don't forget, in the battle report it must say that Andro was defeated by Citri. Ail immediately replied, Understood. I will make sure everyone keeps quiet. Nan then turned and ordered, Deputy Commander, handle the aftermath. I need to go check on Seer. Then Nan suddenly asked, Speaking of which, where is the Queen now? She should be with Lady Citri. Ail answered. What? She's alone with a Demon King right now? Nan raised an eyebrow. Please don't worry, Ail explained. Citri isn't foolish. She won't act recklessly. Meanwhile, Citri and her subordinates also received news that all soldiers of the 70th layer had surrendered. At that moment, Seer noticed movement in the distance. It was Teacher. The next second, Seer happily ran toward the door. Citri, however, hadn't sensed anything at all. Before long, Nan descended from the sky and landed in front of her. Looking at Seer, he asked, "Did you have fun?" Citri was immediately shocked. "What? How are you back so quickly?" "When Commander Ale arrives?" Nan answered lightly. "You can ask her for the battle report." For now, however, Nan had something to give Seer. "Here, take this." He handed over Andro's head. "This is the head of Demon King Andro. I hope it brings your majesty the praise you deserve." "But teacher," Seer froze. "You're the one who killed him," Nan simply said. "In any case, Seer and I will head back first. Remember, the spoils are split 50-50. Meanwhile, back at the castle, Butler Kane was repairing the damaged gate. Nan then returned directly to the castle, through the teleportation gate. Seeing the situation before him, he immediately understood that the uninvited guests had indeed been driven away. Kane bowed respectfully. "Congratulations on conquering the 70th layer. Now we must prepare to relocate the demon castle." Nan shook his head. "There's no rush. I was planning to hand the castle and the 70th layer over to Citri anyway." Seer asked in confusion, "Teacher, you were the one who killed Andro, but you gave all the credit to Lady Citri. Aren't we losing out?" Kane also said seriously, "Taking the demon castle means formally declaring conquest. Are you saying we should hand even that over to Lady Citri?" Nan nodded. "That's right. More than a castle, what we need right now is capital, territory, and resources. Our finances aren't stable enough to independently support the 70th layer. Before we truly grow strong, I need Citri to handle the mess that follows on the 70th layer. Officially, Citri is now the ruler of the 70th layer. From this point on, everything that happens there will be her responsibility. I have already thought everything through. There's no need to worry. And I'm not someone who lets others use me, nor would I hand something over for free. From now on, we will focus on Ciri's studies and the castle's internal affairs. On top of that, we still need to find out who was supporting Demon King Andro from behind the scenes." Kane finally nodded. "I understand, Lord Nan, but how were you so certain that you could win Aaron's support?" Nan only said that it was pure luck. In truth, however, it had been a small event that occasionally happened in the game. Now that the immediate crisis had passed, Nan could finally focus more on training and lessons. At the same time, Seer had to learn what it truly meant to rule, because the one who truly owned this territory wasn't Nan, but the adorable Queen Seer. Seer said earnestly, "I really like having teacher teach me. Little Bear likes it too." Nan smiled gently. "Thank you for liking it so much. It seems I didn't choose the wrong path." After that, Nan planned to go handle some documents, but Seer pitifully grabbed onto him and refused to let him leave. Cecily had said that after working hard, one had to rest properly, and Seer, looking wronged, wanted Nan to stay with her for a little while and soothe her to sleep for a nap. If he refused again, she might actually start crying, so Nan decided to put her down for her nap first, then return to his work. Just then, Leah walked over. "Lord Nan, you're back." "Perfect timing, Leah," Nan nodded. "Could you bring a cup of hot tea to Seer's room? Also, one more thing, you weren't injured, were you?" Leah immediately replied, "Of course not. Thank you for your concern, my lord. I will bring the tea right away." It seemed Lord Nan had already figured out exactly what had happened inside the castle, as well as how much strength they still had left. Seer asked with concern, "Teacher, did something happen to Leah?" "No," Nan answered softly. "I just wanted to make sure." Then, Nan looked at the bear in her arms. "Are you going to sleep with the little white bear?" Seer nodded at once. "Of course. I sleep with it every day." But just as Nan was about to leave, Seer puffed up her cheeks and grabbed his hand. "Teacher, you sleep here with me too." Nan paused inwardly. Was she this attached to him because she had lost her father at such a young age? Or did she truly feel some kind of sense of security by his side? So, Nan decided to stay with Seer for now, at least until she fell asleep peacefully. Meanwhile, news that Demon King Andro of the 70th layer had been killed by Citri had already reached Dantal, the Demon King of the 69th layer. The general of the 69th layer guessed that Citri had only won because she had cooperated with the 72nd layer. That meant the next target would likely be the 69th layer, so they had to make every possible preparation in advance. Dantal said in a low voice, "I will write a letter to Decarabia of the 68th layer." The general was shocked. "Your Majesty, do you mean you intend to form an alliance with him? Do we have a better choice?" Dantal asked coldly. "That man may have a foul personality and a foolish mind, but if I sit still and do nothing, I will be the next one to die. Enough chatter. Prepare the letter." Decarabia has no reason to refuse. On the other side, Leah soon brought the hot tea to Seer's room. But when she entered, she found that while soothing Seer to sleep, Nan had also dozed off beside her. The warm scene left Leah quietly moved. Not long after, Citri, having finished organizing the spoils of war, came before Nan to report. Since Nan had handed the demon castle on the 70th layer over to her, Nan's side would be allowed to choose from the spoils first. Nan reminded her, "You will be busy from now on, managing the land we just occupied. But no matter how busy you are, you still have to come for training once every week." Citri nodded. "No problem. Don't worry. I know what I need to do." The post-war cleanup was indeed urgent, and Nan needed to draft some guidelines before the night was over. Just then, a maid came to report that Clean Siri wouldn't be able to attend Nan's lesson today. After hearing the reason, Nan immediately stood up in alarm. He hadn't expected Seer to have a fever. She had clearly been fine yesterday. Had he pushed her too hard in training, or had the battlefield affected her somehow? The maid quickly reassured him. "Please don't worry too much. It seems to be just a common cold. Children her age can suddenly fall ill like this." Nan slowly calmed down. She was right. Siri was still only a child. It was normal for her to get sick from time to time. But Nan also realized that he should have expected this. This wasn't a game anymore. This was real life. He had to finish his work quickly and go check on Siri. Not long after, Nan came to Seer's bedside with 2 adorable plush toys. Seer was overjoyed, hugging the plush toys and laughing non-stop. But that was still nowhere near enough. Nan had prepared even more. Before long, a mountain of plush toys had completely buried Siri. However, all of that was only a dream Seer was having in her sleep. In reality, Nan had indeed come to her bedside, carrying 1 plush toy with him. Listening to the soft sleep talking coming from Seer, Nan knew she must be having a wonderful dream. Fortunately, her fever had already gone down. At this rate, she should be fine by tomorrow. Just as Nan was about to move a chair over and sit beside her, Siri suddenly woke from her sleep. Seeing that, Nan gently stroked her head, told her to keep sleeping, and promised that he would stay there with her. Siri asked drowsily, "Then can I look at that document?" Nan refused at once. "Not today. Rest properly. We can look at it together tomorrow. Right now, getting better is the most important thing. If you're still sick tomorrow and miss out on pudding, you'll be sad, won't you?" The next day arrived quickly, and Butler Kane brought Nan the list of spoils submitted by Commander Ale. Among the items, there was one they absolutely had to bring back from the 70th layer. Equipment was one of the key factors in the game, and it could greatly increase a character's growth efficiency. This particular piece was a hidden item Nan had only discovered on his 40th ending route. Who would have thought that such an important item would be hidden on the 70th layer so early in the game? Nan looked at Kane and gave a serious order. "Kane, make absolutely sure this equipment belongs to us. We can't afford to lose it. As for the other items, choose as appropriate and leave them to the captain." Kane nodded. "Understood. However, my lord, are you certain this mark is correct?" According to the list, what Nan needed was a broken sword of unknown origin, and its blade was shattered. Before long, Nan brought Siri to the storage room. The moment they entered, Siri's eyes locked onto the colorful gems. The glittering gold coins also immediately caught her attention. To Nan, treasures like these were nothing new, but clearly the others had never seen such an enormous amount of wealth before. What made it even harder to believe was that this was only what remained after half had already been divided away. Just then, the subordinates working nearby greeted Seer, and Seer politely returned their greeting. Soon, 2 subordinates brought over a box. "This is the item Lord Nan instructed us to handle with special care. Please confirm whether this is the item you mentioned." Nan nodded. "Yes, you did well bringing it here. The Sword of Blood Tears earned its name from the blood-red gem embedded in it. When mana was poured into the sword, the blade looked as if it were flowing with bloody tears. In the game, equipping it increased growth efficiency by 5 times. At this stage, it had the highest attack power available. And as long as the user learned 1 special spell, its efficiency became absurdly powerful." Under Seer's curious gaze, Nan told her, "This is a gift for you. It's broken right now, but I know how to repair it. Let's finish checking the spoils first. After that, we'll go restore this sword." The moment Nan told her it would sparkle once repaired, Seer became extremely interested. While Nan was distributing the spoils, Siri's gaze kept lingering on the glowing gems, so Nan told her that if she liked them, she could simply take them. After all, everything here belonged to her. After hearing that, Seer chose a red crown. As expected of her, Bloodline never lied. After they finished choosing items, Nan brought Seer deep underground. Nan knew exactly where the fragment was, so the branching paths were no problem for him. Soon he arrived in front of a pile of rubble. And just as expected, Nan found the other half of the broken sword there. But that wasn't the end of it. Now only the most important piece remained. Nan released his mana, splitting the rubble in front of him apart and revealing an opening. After entering, they saw a mysterious door standing before them, with a winged stone demon perched above it. Seeing this, Nan held Seer in his arms. From here, all we need to do is pass through this door. After detecting intruders, the stone demon immediately awakened and blocked their path. The race of stone demons was almost extinct, so Nan had no intention of killing him. In the next instant, Nan released overwhelming demonic pressure, terrifying the stone demon so badly that it froze on the spot. After sensing the massive gap in strength between them, the stone demon immediately knelt and offered to serve Nan as his master. An ancient stone demon this large might prove useful later, so Nan told him to wait there for now and that he would come back to collect him shortly. After walking deeper through the door, Nan finally saw the red crystal placed in the center. That crystal was the key to restoring the broken sword. Nan then arranged the two halves of the broken sword in the correct order and placed them before the crystal. Soon, the crystal seemed to sense something and began emitting a powerful light. When the light faded, a complete weapon embedded with a red gem was floating before them. Seeing this, Nan looked at Siri and asked, "Isn't it beautiful? This is my gift to you." Watching Siri carefully take the sword into her hands, Nan felt a quiet warmth in his chest. And after receiving the Sword of Blood Tears, Seer couldn't wait to begin swordsmanship training. When Nan returned with the stone demon, Butler Kane was immediately startled. Because the stone demon was far too enormous, he wasn't suited to directly guarding the demon castle. So Nan planned to assign him to deal with humans who trespassed. Having him defend the teleportation area would be a perfect arrangement. Nan looked at the stone demon and said, "So you heard our conversation, right? If you prove useless, you'll be eliminated." Since Kane had other reports to submit, Nan had him come to his office. Kane reported, "There are reports that Dantel has begun contacting Decarabia. If the 69th layer and the 68th layer form a strong alliance, it will be difficult for us to deal with them." Nan nodded. "That's right. We can't afford a direct conflict right now. But we also can't just sit back and watch. It seems there is only one path to take. I will shake Dantal's foundation." Kane warned him, but Dantal's faction is powerful, and he isn't an idiot like Andro. Dantal's faction is famous for its merchants. He believes commerce is the true force that drives a layer forward. Nan said lightly, "But what merchants value most is trust. All we need to do is destroy that trust, and Dantal's faction will collapse on its own." Kane frowned. "You're correct. But that trust was built up over a long period of time. How can we overturn it overnight?" Nan answered calmly, "I never said we would finish it in a short time. Supporting Siri and helping her solidify her foundation will take at least 5 years. So we will slowly dismantle Dantel's economic policies. We can become their competitors, but we will only conduct business on the 70th layer, so it won't directly affect us here." Kane immediately understood. "I see. You intend to use Her Majesty's Citri, correct?" "This isn't using her," Nan corrected him. "It's cooperation." Kane asked again, "But will Her Majesty's Citri accept that risk?" Nan said calmly, "Don't worry, this proposal will be tempting enough for her. As for what we will sell, it will be something merchants would fight to the death over. We will sell things that don't exist in the demon realm." Not long after, a rumor began spreading through the human kingdoms. It was said that only a few demon guards remained protecting the demon realm, making it extremely easy to raid. Someone said excitedly, "Maybe we can go kill some monsters or demons and make a fortune." I heard ram horns have become trendy and profitable lately. I know where a group of ram-headed people live, and there are plenty of young ones there too, so getting their horns should be easy. Another person immediately agreed. "Perfect. In that case, let's head to the demon realm and make some serious money." Before long, a party united by the same goal of making money arrived at the teleportation array. The two people leading them were both powerful A-rank adventurers. Everyone believed that with those two present, dealing with small fry from the demon realm would be nothing. However, many adventurers had also heard a rumor that those who entered the demon realm never returned. Soon after, the party successfully arrived in the demon realm. To their surprise, the guards along the way seemed to have vanished into thin air. The adventurers began to wonder whether the demons had abandoned this layer. After all, there was a famous theory that the demon realm was made of multiple layers, like some enormous tower. Just then, they finally spotted their target. The ram-headed people were in the distance. Everyone immediately lowered their movements and prepared to begin the hunt. At that moment, the lead A-rank adventurer said, "All the horns belong to us. You can take everything else." Someone couldn't help complaining, but the horns are the whole point of hunting rams. The other A-rank adventurer immediately released his mana pressure and said coldly, "Kid, you're still young. Why not keep yourself alive and do what I say?" Because the gap in strength was too large, the man had no choice but to accept the shameless condition. "Fine. But Mr. Rick, we'll leave the fighting to you." Rick sneered. "I never planned to let you help with the fighting anyway." But at that moment, the ground suddenly shook violently, making it hard for them to stay on their feet. Everyone thought it was an earthquake. Someone shouted in panic, "What's going on? At this rate, all the ram-headed people will run away." But in the next instant, the enormous sting demon suddenly leaped down from the sky. The terrifying sight made even the two A-rank adventurers tremble uncontrollably. Then, Commander Ale gave a cold order. "Capture them all alive." Seeing this, the man was completely confused. He couldn't understand why the demons wanted to imprison them instead of simply killing them. A month quickly passed. During that time, Ale told Nan that they had captured 276 humans and locked them away in a warehouse. Nan had originally thought the passage connected to the human world would become their weakness, but Ale had turned it into a hunting ground. To reach the perfect ending, Nan was willing to do anything. In the game, humans were worth less than useless insects, and mercy never brought any benefit. However, Ale reminded him, "Lord Nan, the plan where you withdrew the guards to lure them in is becoming less effective. The humans seem to have realized it's a trap." Nan nodded. "But we still need more humans. In that case, it's time to change the plan." "Commander Ale, do you know anyone skilled in mind control?" Ale answered, "There are plenty of beings capable of interfering with human minds." Nan said lightly, "Good. Then for the grand finale, we'll make them come to us willingly." Not long after, a human who claimed to have escaped from demon territory staggered into the Adventurer Guild. He shouted in panic, "Please help me. I just escaped from the demon realm. Everyone who went missing was captured by the Guardians. And all of my party members are still there. We have to save them." At that moment, Adalbert, the S-rank guildmaster, stepped forward and calmly asked him, "Why would demons capture humans alive?" The man immediately argued back, "I don't know. How would I have time to figure that out? Are you doubting someone who just barely escaped death?" Adalbert said flatly, "If I said I didn't doubt you, I would be lying. To think a C-rank adventurer like you returned from the demon realm alone and alive. More importantly, your heartbeat suddenly sped up just now. It sounds exactly like every liar I've ever met." Interesting. The moment I said that, it calmed down again, almost as if someone flipped a switch. "And I can smell a filthy aura on you. Your mind is being controlled by a demon, isn't it?" In the next instant, the man suddenly drew his sword and tried to ambush Adalbert. As expected of an S-rank adventurer, you really are sharp. But the very next second, Adalbert swung his sword and cut him in half. His speed was so overwhelming that no one present had time to react. Adalbert ordered coldly, "Angela, send word to every guild. No one is allowed to enter the demon realm." But just then, someone rushed in through the guild entrance. "Terrible news," he shouted. "The Northern Alliance has already gathered adventurers and is preparing to attack the demon realm." Adalbert's face darkened. "What a bunch of idiots. I should never have expected anything useful from those blockheads." Meanwhile, far away in Babylon, the capital of the Holy Nation, a demon subjugation army had already begun marching under the command of the Lord of Hosts. A few days earlier, Commander Ael had told Nan that all the mind-controlled humans had been released back into the world. Nan instructed her to send one group to Sote City in the Holy Nation, because there was a particularly troublesome human there. In the game, several humans appeared as especially annoying enemies. One of them was the guild master of the Sotla Adventurer Guild, who also happened to be one of the Empire's top assassins. Through the plan over the past few days, they had successfully lured many adventurers into the demon realm and captured them. Under the deputy commander's orders, the soldiers had to use mana nets to capture as many adventurers as possible. The stone demon was also working with them in the capture operation. Before the stone demon's absolute strength, almost no human could withstand his attacks. However, the only ones he was supposed to kill were those who tried to escape. Before long, Commander Ael prepared to fire mana nets into the gaps in the adventurers' formation. Under her command, all the soldiers launched their nets forward at the same time. A massive mana net soon appeared above the surrounded adventurers. These mana nets could easily trap human adventurers and leave them unable to move. Because they were made from giant spider silk, they were extremely difficult to break. Meanwhile, an A-rank Holy Knight was locked in fierce battle with the stone demon. He immediately ordered the soldiers under him to follow and carve out a path of escape. Because there were too many people, the deputy commander worried that the stone demon might miss some of them and allow them to escape in the chaos. So he requested permission from Ael to handle this area himself. In the next instant, after receiving approval, the deputy commander transformed into a powerful Asura. Then he leaped down from above and killed the leading holy knight with a single strike. Seeing that, everyone immediately gave up on the idea of breaking through by force. They threw down their weapons and turned to flee, but by then, it was already far too late. The deputy commander then ordered the soldiers to play with them for a while before capturing every last one of them. Before long, news of the plan's success reached Nan. Nan sincerely thanked everyone for their hard work. After that, Nan returned to his office, where Seer and Butler Kane had already been waiting for quite some time. Nan then told Kane to prepare to leak information to the merchants of the demon world, select the 200 prisoners with the highest market value, and release the rest. Kane froze. Release them? We worked so hard to capture them. Are you planning to negotiate with the humans? Nan said calmly, of course. We're going to squeeze every bit of value out of them. Kane frowned and warned him, forgive me for speaking plainly, but it's still too early. Our strength is limited, and we shouldn't start a war with humanity. Nan explained, there are several human nations we must watch carefully. First is the holy nation of Ophelix, the only religious state. Second is the Bismarck Empire, the only nation ruled by a crowned emperor. And finally, there is the Northern Alliance, made up of 7 northern fortresses. To ordinary people, they are certainly troublesome, but refusing negotiations wouldn't be wise. Right now, they can't send out an army. First of all, they invaded our demon realm. The responsibility clearly lies with the humans. If we, the victims, propose resolving this with ransom, and they refuse, then whether they are kings or emperors, they will lose the trust of their people. Seer asked seriously, is it really that serious? Nan nodded. It is. You must remember this as well. For a demon king, maintaining your foundation matters more than anything. Kane lowered his head. Understood, Lord Nan. I will select them purely based on their value as goods. Nan continued. Also, I want to gather skilled blacksmiths. We'll need them to prepare certain items for sale. Before long, the Emperor of the Bismarck Empire received the ransom notice. Looking at the letter, he said coldly, I've lived this long, and this is the first time I've ever received a letter like this from demons. I thought the demon realm was nothing more than a playground for adventurers. One minister analyzed the situation. It doesn't seem as if they are drunk on ambition and trying to devour the human world. If that were the case, those simple-minded creatures would have declared war already. The emperor asked, then how much ransom do they want? For every 10 people, the minister replied, 50 kilograms of gold, 100 kilograms of silver, and roughly 2 tons of iron ore. The emperor sneered. That's no small demand. It seems they've underestimated us. Shouldn't we teach them a lesson? The minister immediately advised him, Your Majesty, for the sake of our people, we must meet their demands. This incident was caused entirely by the reckless actions of the Adventurer Guild. We have no reason to punish the demons. The emperor frowned. Is justification really that important? They're demons. The minister answered gravely, It is important, because we can't accurately estimate the demon realm's current strength. Many of the adventurers who joined this battle were close to high rank level, yet not a single one of those skilled fighters escaped. All of them were captured. The emperor snapped, Are we not an empire? Are we supposed to bow our heads to the demon realm and let them trample over us? The minister continued, If rumors spread that the emperor abandoned his people and left them to die, public outrage would become nearly impossible to calm. After a long silence, the emperor finally gave the order. Inform them that we accept the agreement. At the same time, use every authority we have to gather all information on the demon realm. One day, this humiliation will be repaid many times over. Before long, Butler Kane informed Nan that one nation had yet to respond, but the Bismarck Empire, the Holy Nation, and the Northern Alliance had already agreed to negotiate. Tomorrow morning, they will escort the prisoners to the designated area. I've written the exchange location clearly in the letter. Nan nodded. When you meet the human envoys, tell them this. If they still haven't answered by the end of the week, we'll handle the remaining prisoners ourselves. Meanwhile, the dwarven blacksmiths Nan had invited had also arrived at the castle. What they never expected was to see Queen Seer and Her Majesty Citri standing together. Nan looked at the crowd and said, Welcome, craftsmen from every layer. I imagine you're all wondering why I gathered you here. Then Citri pulled the cover off the weapon rack, revealing the finely crafted human weapons displayed beneath it. The moment the dwarven craftsmen saw them, they couldn't help moving closer to examine them carefully. Citri told them, These were all seized from human adventurers. Nan continued, This is why you were summoned here. Analyze every human weapon you see, then recreate them as closely to their quality as possible. One dwarf immediately complained, What? Are you saying our work is so pathetic that we can only copy human trash? Nan said coldly, Since you understand, then get to work. Stop wasting time and resources making half-baked weapons. And everything Nan said was the truth. He looked at them and asked, Let me ask you this. If a sword forged by humans clashed against one forged by you, what do you think would happen? I'm not telling you to copy them completely. Study their weapons, then use what you learned to create your own. At that moment, one blacksmith stepped forward and accepted Nan's approach. I can do it. However, I don't understand their forging process, so the analysis will take time. Nan then asked Siri and Citri for their opinions. May I appoint this blacksmith as the leader of the project? Neither of them objected. So Nan placed him in charge of the project and personally pinned a medal on him, granting him the authority to command the other blacksmiths. The crowd immediately began grumbling. Many of them believed the leader should be chosen through an election. Nan frowned and cut off their complaints at once. A leader is someone who steps forward first and dares to carry responsibility. You didn't even have the courage to stand up, so what right do you have to talk about leadership? Ignoring his orders is the same as ignoring the orders of these two demon kings. So if anyone dares to do that, I will execute them on the spot. After dealing with the blacksmiths, Citri clearly wanted a few words of praise from Nan, but Nan kept praising Siri instead and completely ignored her. After brushing Citri off with a few casual words, Nan prepared to discuss the profit split for this new business. Since Citri was only lending her name and didn't need to worry about most of the actual work, the profit she could receive, naturally, wouldn't be very high. However, Citri opened by demanding half the profits, which made both Nan and Seer look disappointed. That wasn't negotiation, that was robbery. When Citri saw that Nan seemed ready to find another partner, she quickly changed her tune and said she only needed 10%. But even 10% was still a large amount for Nan's side. After all, profit always came with risk, and both inventory and prices would constantly fluctuate. After several rounds of bargaining, Nan finally pushed the split down to 5%. But even at only 5%, the actual amount Citri would receive would still be impressive. To Demon Kings, weapons themselves weren't especially useful. That was exactly why demon weapon research had fallen behind. But in truth, demons weren't inferior to humans when it came to forging talent. A demon king alone could never handle everything. That was why the equipment level of the army mattered so much. After Citri finished signing the contract, Nan told her, "The profit we're providing you is the weapon equipment itself." That sentence immediately stunned Citri. "Shouldn't equipment be supplied to us for free, as your allies?" Nan answered calmly, "Of course not. Besides, if this venture fails, the one whose reputation will be damaged is you. Your Majesty Citri, I hope you understand. There's no such thing as a free lunch." Night quickly arrived, and the human prisoners locked inside the dungeon crouched in their cells, completely crushed by despair. One of them whispered, "Don't give up hope, Ellie." But Ellie looked hopeless. "It's been days. They haven't rescued anyone. Instead, they keep bringing in more prisoners. Do you really think they're going to let us live?" Just then, Nan and Cain arrived at the dungeon to sort through the list of prisoners who needed to be handed over. The two humans only needed one look at Nan to realize he was no ordinary figure, because there was an indescribable pressure surrounding him. Before long, the soldiers followed the list and dragged some of the human prisoners away. That made the two even more terrified. They had no idea where they were being taken. Were they about to be executed? At that moment, Nan stopped in front of them and asked for their names. The man was called Dan, and the pink-haired girl was called Ellie. Nan then asked, "Do you know someone named Luke?" The moment they heard that name, both of them said at once that Nan's people had taken Luke away. Nan immediately understood. "I see, so he was the one active in Sote City, wasn't he?" Then, Nan asked Keem beside him to bring paper and a pen. After that, he drew the man's face on the paper. Sure enough, the moment the two saw the portrait, they confirmed that the person in the drawing was Luke. With Kane's reminder, Nan learned that Commander Ale had previously used mind control to send Luke to Sote City. Nan thought to himself that this luck was almost unbelievable. Once this matter was handled, these two humans had to be brought to his office. Powerful figures from the human realm were no less dangerous than demon kings from other layers. In the game's setting, once humanity's hostility passed a certain threshold, 3 heroes would be summoned. And one of them was Luke, the hero of the sword. That guildmaster would never allow a mind-controlled human to survive. Nan had never expected that. Through sheer coincidence, he had personally removed a future hero. As for Luke's companions, Dan and Ellie, they had also performed extremely well in the game. Selling them off as slaves would be far too wasteful. So, Nan told them that from this point on, the two of them would follow him. Cain immediately frowned. "Lord Nan, what are you saying? We can't bring them near Demon King Sira. Keeping humans around will only invite disaster." Nan simply said that he had his reasons, and that Cain didn't need to worry. Then, Nan looked at the two humans. "So, what do you two think? If you agree, I'll spare your lives and give you treatment worthy of your abilities. Of course, you may refuse. You'll simply be sent back to the dungeon, and nothing will change." Dan gritted his teeth and asked, "What will happen if we stay in the dungeon?" Nan answered calmly, "Either you'll be sold as slaves and live miserable lives, or you'll end up dead like your friend." Dan snapped, "How can you say that so calmly? Luke was taken because of you. Nan didn't deny it. Correct, but we weren't the ones who killed him. The guild master of Soat City did. We sent Luke there to do a job, and that man killed him. Dan's expression changed. Luke was killed by Mr. Adalbert. But even so, working for a demon king was still something Dan couldn't accept. Yet, the moment he finished speaking, Ellie slowly opened her mouth. "Will you really let us live?" she asked. "Then I'll do it." Dan stared at her in shock. "Ellie, are you insane? You trust a demon that easily?" Ellie gave a bitter smile. "What's the difference between demons and humans? If you have no money, they ignore you. If you have no power, they look down on you all the same. Do you remember how we were treated before? I don't want to die, and I don't want to become a slave. So I'm taking this chance, even if it means making a deal with a demon." After hearing Ellie's words, Dan finally gritted his teeth and chose to stay as well. "Then keep your promise. What do you want us to do now?" Nan said calmly. "You start training now. As you are now, you're completely useless. I'll give you 3 years. If you fail, then you have no future." The next day, Nan brought Seer outside to begin swordsmanship practice. Judging from the memories he had inherited, Seer actually had decent talent with a sword. The only problem was that Seer was still hugging her little white bear tightly. Nan told her that if she kept holding the bear, she wouldn't be able to practice properly. After thinking about it for a moment, Seer slowly placed the bear to the side. The fact that she was willing to let go of it, even briefly, proved that she truly trusted Nan. Siri whispered, "Little bear, I'll be right back. Wait here for me." Once training began, Nan first taught her how to hold the sword the way he did. To his surprise, Seer's stance was already quite proper on her very first try. Then, Nan demonstrated a sword swing. He brought the blade down toward the front. Seeing that, Siri copied his movement and prepared to swing as well. At the exact moment Seer was about to swing, Nan immediately used mana to protect her body. In the next instant, a massive wave of sword energy shot straight toward the distant wall. Looking at the power unleashed by the Sword of Blood Tears, even Nan was a little surprised. This seemed different from how it worked in the game. It looked like swordsmanship lessons would have to be done with wooden swords from now on. Just then, Siri slowly spoke up. "By the way, teacher, there's something I should tell you. It seems humans have entered the castle. I even saw a girl among them. What do you think they want?" Nan explained that those 2 humans were people he had taken in. However, they would have to grow on their own. The only person he would personally teach was Seer. Siri puffed up her cheeks. "That's not true. You also teach Lady Citri. That's just business," Nan explained. "Keeping a good relationship with her will benefit you greatly." Siri looked up and asked, "Teacher Nan, you'll always be my teacher and only mine, right?" Nan answered gently, "Of course, you're my one and only disciple." Siri finally brightened up. "Hee hee, so teacher thinks that too?" Just then, Butler Kane leaned close to Nan's ear and quietly told him that Siri's birthday was coming soon. For the next few days, Nan seemed distracted whenever he trained Citri. Citri noticed that something was on his mind and told him to say it out loud. She might be able to help. So, Nan told her that Siri's birthday was coming soon, but he still had no idea what gift to give her. After hearing that, Citri gave a helpless smile. She had thought Nan and Seer had argued, and she was about to use the chance to lure Nan away. Then Citri told him he could give Siri something she liked, such as plush toys or cake. But Nan wanted to give her something more special. That way he could make Seer happy, raise her affection, and move one step closer to the perfect ending. Siri loved shiny things. Nan remembered that she had taken a crown from the storage room before, but it was far too large for her to wear. Citri told Nan she had a solution. They just needed to have a craftsman remake it. The problem was that the crown was inside Seer's room. If they wanted to surprise her, they had to secretly get it out. Night soon arrived, and the maid Cecily volunteered to take part in the operation. Since Siri had gone to the dining room for pudding, this was the perfect chance. But just as they were about to open the door, Seer suddenly came running over from outside. It turned out that Seer had sensed Nan's mana nearby long ago. They had almost ruined the whole surprise. Nan quickly came up with an excuse. "The weather is nice tonight, so I wanted to take you out for a walk." As for the rest, they would have to leave it to Cecily. Looking at the round moon outside, Siri's eyes widened happily. Nan thought to himself that Seer really did love shiny things. In that case, that crown was definitely the best birthday gift for her. Nan said softly, "Siri, you need to grow up healthy. If anything ever feels difficult, tell me right away. You don't have to force yourself." Siri answered earnestly, "I like teacher, and I like teacher's lessons, so none of it feels difficult." Nan said gently, "Good. But if you ever feel unwell, you must tell me. Rest is just as important as studying. Nan sincerely hoped that Cyr would always keep that innocence. Just then, Cecily signaled from outside the window that the mission had been completed. Once Nan got the crown, he immediately went to the 70th layer and found the blacksmith. Then he asked the blacksmith to keep the same design but shrink the crown down proportionally. With that, Cyr's birthday gift was complete. All that remained was preparing the birthday party. But when Nan returned to the castle, he found 2 maids gathered around Cyr, trying to comfort her. One maid said gently, "Lord Nan just stepped out. He'll be back soon. Why don't we eat some pudding while we wait?" But Cyr shook her head and refused while crying. Just then, she suddenly sensed Nan's arrival. Overjoyed, Cyr immediately ran over and threw herself into Nan's arms. Nan quickly asked, "What happened? Why are you crying?" The maid explained, "Lord Nan, you left without saying anything. Her Majesty came looking for you, and I think she thought you might never come back." Nan said softly, "I only stepped out to handle something, Cyr. I'm sorry I left without telling you." Cyr and prepared to leave. After Nan comforted her for quite a while, Cyr finally began to stop crying. Looking at her sad little face, Nan told her seriously, "Don't worry about me leaving. I'll keep protecting you until you grow up, until you reach the very top." Cyr looked up and asked quietly, "So when I grow up and become strong, teacher, will you leave?" Nan paused inwardly. It was true that if he managed to achieve the perfect ending, he might be able to return to the real world. But he couldn't tell Cyr that. So Nan said gently, "Of course not, Cyr. I'll always stay by your side." What Nan didn't know was that Cyr had seen through his lie. Deep down, Cyr had already sensed that once his goal was achieved, teacher might really leave. So she quietly made up her mind. She had to work even harder, hard enough to keep Nan by her side forever. The day of Cyr's birthday soon arrived. That day, Cyr dressed up beautifully, looking just like a little princess. Everyone in the castle had also prepared carefully chosen gifts for her. Cyr was incredibly happy that day, and the smile on her face never seemed to fade. Meanwhile, Citri also arrived at the party with her subordinates. The gift she brought was a golden statue made specially for Cyr. Cyr said happily, "Thank you very much, Lady Citri. I really like it." At the same time, Nan had the blacksmith bring out the gift he had prepared long ago. Clearly, Nan's gift was the one Cyr had been looking forward to the most. When she opened the box, the sparkling crown inside instantly made her eyes shine. The once oversized crown had now been remade by the blacksmith into a size that a child could wear. When Cyr placed it on her head, her lively and adorable appearance instantly drew the eyes of every guest. After the banquet ended, Nan carried Cyr and prepared to leave. As the training continued, more and more of Cyr's white hair began turning red. That meant her ability to store external mana was gradually stabilizing. At that moment, Nan suddenly noticed something on her head. When he gently lifted the nearby strands of hair, he realized that Cyr had actually grown horns. Nan quickly asked Cain, "Is something wrong with Cyr? She has horns on her head." Cain looked confused instead. "It's only natural for a demon king to grow horns, Lord Nan. Please remember that Her Majesty Citri has horns as well." Hearing that, Nan finally breathed a sigh of relief. "As long as nothing is wrong, that's fine." As he spoke, he couldn't help gently touching the tiny horns. Seeing this, Cain quickly reminded him that newly grown horns were extremely sensitive, so he had to be very careful. The next day, since the blacksmiths had successfully replicated human weapons, Nan brought Cyr to inspect the results. When the blacksmith learned that Nan planned to test the weapon himself, he became visibly nervous, afraid that his work might fail. But Nan reassured him, "It's fine. Failure is the best teacher. Learn from it and do better next time." After picking up the sword, Nan found that both its surface luster and overall weight were almost identical to human weapons. Then, Nan told Cyr to stand farther away because the test might hurt her. In the next instant, Nan swung the sword directly at the human weapon on the table. To everyone's surprise, the sword forged by the blacksmith remained completely undamaged. That meant they had succeeded. As long as the edge was sharpened a little more, it could officially be released as a finished product. Nan said with satisfaction, "I'll leave the rest of the equipment to you as well. I have high expectations for all of you." Before long, people on the 69th layer began hearing rumors. "I heard the 70th layer is selling extremely rare weapons." "Duke Wayne," someone replied. "Rumors without evidence can't be trusted. It's nothing more than gossip." "This time, it isn't gossip," another person argued. "They say the weapons are comparable to human weapons, and they're manufactured locally." "Then they must be smuggled goods," the first man scoffed. I bet the quantity is pitifully small, and nowhere near large enough for real trade. After thinking for a moment, Duke Wayne said, "Perhaps, as you say, it's only a rumor. But I still need to verify it myself." Before long, they arrived on the 70th layer together to investigate. At that moment, Citri slowly spoke. "Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for traveling such a long way based on a single rumor." Someone noticed Seer was also present and thought to himself that Queen Seer being here was unexpected. The alliance between the two demon kings was already no secret, so this business clearly wasn't being run by Citri alone. Still, this matter could develop into something worth being cautious about. Citri guaranteed in the name of a demon king that the weapons she was offering today had been forged by their own hands, and their quality was equal to weapons made by humans. The fact that a demon king was willing to stake her reputation on it showed just how confident she was. Nan then said, "We'll only share information with those who are truly interested in doing business. If you have no intention of participating, you may leave through that door now. But if you stay, you must be prepared to make a deal. If you stay and then decide not to buy, don't expect to leave this place alive." Sure enough, after hearing such a forceful demand, many people chose to leave. Those who remained all hoped to use this opportunity to build a connection with the Demon Kings. After the meeting began, Nan stepped down from the stage and told everyone that he was the one who had planned this deal. That shocked everyone below. In other words, this man had somehow made two Demon Kings his business partners. Nan looked at Duke Wayne and said, "I have two proposals for you to consider. First, the weapons trade. For the next 3 years, I'll grant you the right to use and sell our equipment throughout the Demon Realm, as well as exclusive sales rights. The profit split will be 60% for me and 40% for you." In reality, this was already an excellent deal. Nan gestured toward the table. "The sword on the left is a human weapon, and the one on the right is ours. You may compare them yourself." After seeing the weapons they had forged, everyone was full of praise. The craftsmanship was truly astonishing. Receiving exclusive sales rights for goods like these for 3 whole years was an incredible bargain. Duke Wayne asked, "How much stock do you plan to supply us?" 400 blades per month, Nan answered. "That means an average of 20 per person." Someone frowned. "Isn't that a little low?" Nan nodded. "You're correct, but our military equipment doesn't consist only of swords. We'll trade most types of military equipment with you. At present, that includes swords, spears, axes, shields, armor, helmets, and full sets of both heavy and light armor." Hearing such a wide range of products, everyone immediately realized that this was enough to launch a massive business project. Duke Wayne then asked, "By the way, Lord Nan, what's your second proposal?" In the game, Wayne was the chairman of a massive merchant guild, and both his ability and status had already been proven. To Nan, the smart move was to bring him over to his side. After that, Nan planned to take these merchants to the dungeon for a look. Pointing at the prisoners inside, Nan said, "What you see here are the humans I captured on the 72nd layer." Someone immediately frowned. "Are you implying a slave trade?" Nan calmly replied, "This is my second proposal. I've already selected the useful ones from among them. There may not be another opportunity like this in the future. So if there are any you want, you may keep them." Even as slaves, humans were difficult to fully control. On top of that, most demons looked down on humans. But for those in positions of power, the situation was completely different. To them, this was absolutely a gold mine. In the end, after weighing the offer, only 5 merchants remained. Seeing that the number was just about right, Nan continued explaining what these selected humans could be used for. Nan pointed to one group and said, "These are prepared as laborers. They're suited for heavy physical work. These are for entertainment. Their appearances are fairly decent. And these are for protection. Their skills are at least comparable to ordinary knights from the human realm." Just then, one of the men angrily struck the iron bars in front of him. He shouted, "You bastards! Don't think I'll ever become your slave. If you have the guts, just kill me." Just as Nan had expected, humans were difficult to control. At this rate, problems were bound to appear sooner or later. But Nan had already prepared for that. In the next instant, a mark suddenly appeared on the back of the rebellious man's neck. At the same time, the man was still cursing non-stop. But then, a terrifying burst of energy erupted and took his life on the spot. Nan explained calmly, "On the back of every slave's neck, I've carved an activated curse. The exact trigger conditions can be set by the owner. If you're still worried, I can also add an extra layer of mind control." Not long after, at Bennett's department store on the 69th layer, the merchants who had left earlier discovered that the replica weapons Bennett had purchased were shockingly high in quality. Someone tried to buy them at twice the price, but since Bennett had signed a contract, the weapons could only be sold by him and couldn't be resold to anyone who hadn't signed. That meant goods of this quality were about to be completely monopolized by him. Then, Bennett ordered his subordinates to spread news of the auction, especially among high-ranking demons. After all, those in high positions always craved new toys. Before long, an invitation to a slave auction was delivered to Nan. Nan decided to go take a look himself. After all, there was nothing urgent at the castle for the moment, and he could conveniently bring those 2 humans along with him. A few days later, inside Bennett's department store on the 69th layer, Nan was walking around with Siri, browsing the sparkling goods. The 2 humans he had brought with him whispered to each other, "Is that adorable girl really a demon king? Then why did she bring us here?" The owner immediately came forward to greet them. "Welcome, your majesty, Seer, Lord Nan. We'd like to browse while we're here," Nan said. "Do you have any magic items?" The owner quickly led them deeper into the store. When he saw that 2 humans were following Nan, he looked a little surprised. But Nan told him not to worry about it. Before long, the owner brought Nan to a hidden armory. Looking at the items displayed inside, Dan and Ellie couldn't help being surprised. "Are these all magic items? And they all seem to be top quality." Nan looked at the 2 of them and said, "If you see anything that might help with your research, each of you may choose one." Ellie's eyes immediately lit up. "Really? Then can I have this ring?" It was an artifact capable of storing mana. Since humans couldn't produce mana on their own, it was safe enough for her to use. At that moment, Nan noticed the faint jealousy in Siri's eyes. So he crouched down, gently patted Siri's head, and asked, "Do you want to choose one too?" Before long, Sir picked the shiniest necklace in the entire room. Nan examined it and found it quite decent. It had a protective charm attached to it, capable of guarding the wearer's safety. Then, Nan instructed the owner to choose suitable magic items for Dan and Ellie as well, saying he would settle the bill later. Nan then asked, "By the way, how much time do we have left?" "If we leave now," the owner replied, "we should arrive right on time." Meanwhile, inside the auction hall, a human slave was being auctioned off, with a starting price of 5 gold coins. Seeing that, Dan and Ellie finally understood that Nan had brought them here as a warning. Using auctions to solve supply issues while raising profits, Nan had clearly put real thought into this. Just then, Sira pointed at the 2 humans in front of her and asked, "But teacher, why don't you sell those 2? They look like they could fetch a good price." Nan explained, "Because I need subordinates too, just like you have Leah and Cecily by your side. Besides, there are certain things only humans can do well." Siri nodded seriously. "Teacher, I trust you." Nan then turned to Dan and Ellie. "Do you regret accepting my offer?" At that same moment, the 2 of them were watching the human slaves being auctioned below. Without Nan, they might have been standing on that auction stage themselves. So both of them said that accepting his offer was the best decision they had ever made. Their answer satisfied Nan. 5 years quickly passed, and Seer's ability to store mana had improved tremendously. Nan looked at her and said, "You've been working hard on mana training. How about we change classrooms today?" "Are we going somewhere fun?" Siri asked, her eyes lighting up. Nan replied, "I'm not sure if it will be fun, but it's a lesson you absolutely need to learn." Today was the day their renewed 2-year weapons contract expired, so the merchants contacted Nan to renegotiate. But Nan didn't believe his side had any obligation to accept. They had already secured enough distribution channels and no longer needed to rely on the original merchants. On top of that, more and more merchants were growing dissatisfied. Perhaps it was time to let other merchants see hope in working with them. That way, those people would naturally offer better terms. Siri said seriously, "Teacher is right. Maintaining a monopoly isn't wise. But for the sake of our current partners, we can still offer them some favorable treatment." Nan nodded. At the same time, he had also heard that the human realm was already in complete chaos. The Northern War, triggered by the Northern Alliance and the Bismarck Empire, had already begun. In that event, players could temporarily remove the human realm from their operations and focus on strengthening their own faction. But that wasn't Nan's main reason. He looked at Seer and asked, "Do you remember my original plan? I said I would completely destroy Dantalion's credibility. And now it's time to officially begin." Nan soon spoke plainly to the merchants. "I'll keep this simple. We won't renew the exclusive contract. You've already shared more than enough profit over the past 5 years. In return, we would like to propose a new arrangement. First, let me show you something. We only need this rumor to spread wider. In exchange, we'll provide more prisoners and slaves." Bennett couldn't help asking, "Lord Nan, is this information true?" Nan calmly asked back, "Are you questioning the truth of the information I gave you? I thought we had already built enough trust between us." Bennett fell silent for a moment. He knew that spreading this rumor would definitely turn Dantalion into their enemy, but cutting ties with Nan now would be even more insane. Seer asked quietly, "Teacher, we have other partners, so why are you so focused on them?" Because they've already built enough trust, Nan answered, and they're willing to take risks for profit. Bennett finally made up his mind. We can't refuse this opportunity. Our cooperation with Lord Nan is essential to our profits. And so, after the negotiations ended, the merchants left. At that moment, Citri questioned whether Nan's information was truly reliable. After all, Dantalion had always been extremely careful with his business. Then, she complained, and recently, I haven't even been able to visit you on the 72nd layer. It's all because of that terrifying girl. Every time I get close to you, she looks at me like she wants to kill me. Not long after, on the 69th layer, Demon King Dantalion saw the news that his arms business was suspected of falsifying sales records. That instantly sent him into a rage. Who dug up this information? The weapons business had once been one of Dantalion's core industries, but in recent years, with high-quality equipment flooding in from the 70th layer, his business had taken a major hit. Large amounts of weapons had piled up in warehouses with no buyers. Yet instead of cutting production, Dantalion falsified the accounts to make it look as if everything had sold out. Even while suffering economic losses, he had been forcing himself to maintain his network of relationships with customers. But once this news broke, the entire situation looked as if he was preparing to take the money and run. His subordinate quickly said, "Your Majesty will find the source of this information as quickly as possible. But right now, there's a more urgent matter. The blacksmith shops have been pressing us to repay our debts." And at this point, Dantalion no longer had enough money on hand to pay them back. So, Dantalion ordered his subordinates to calm the merchants for now, while selling off some assets to raise funds. At that moment, the general quickly advised Demon King Dantalion not to do that. After all, Demon King Enro had failed to maintain his army precisely because he ran short on funds. After a brief silence, Dantalion said coldly, "Fine, contact Decorabia. Rather than being devoured by those beneath us, we'd rather borrow money and cling to someone above us." Before long, Nan received the news, and this was exactly what he had planned for. Siri curiously asked how Nan knew that Dantalion's warehouses were full of weapons. Nan smiled and answered, "Actually, we have those two humans to thank for that information. They turned out to be far more useful than I expected." "Don't tell me you don't trust your teacher's judgment." Hearing that, Siri lowered her head shyly. "That's not what I meant. It's just that teacher has been paying a lot of attention to them lately." Nan smiled softly. "I didn't expect you to still be this childish after growing up. No matter what anyone says, I'm still your teacher. In any case, the relationship between the 68th and 69th layers will collapse on its own sooner or later. Seer, what do you think?" Seer answered seriously, "I think this kind of information is perfect for stirring up trouble." Nan nodded in satisfaction. "Exactly. That's why I want Commander Ale to handle something for me. Can you call her in?" Before long, Commander Ale arrived in the Demon King's audience hall. Nan said, "Dantalion has asked Decarabia for help. The 68th layer will send a delegation to the 69th layer. If they meet smoothly, that'll be bad for us." Then Siri slowly spoke. "Exactly. That's why I want you to receive them." Nan handed the sword in his hand to Ale. "Commander Ale, use this sword. This sword doesn't belong to us. Judging from its material and inscriptions, it was forged on the 69th layer." Ale immediately understood. "So this is a plan? This must be another scheme designed by Lord Nan." She then knelt on one knee. "I'll complete this mission and offer it to your Majesty. At this moment, you've truly become a ruler." Siri looked up at Nan. "Teacher, did I do well?" Nan said gently, "You did very well. Now you're finally starting to look like a real Demon King." "Then what about my reward?" Siri immediately asked. Nan thought for a moment. "All right, what kind of plush toy do you want this time?" Hearing that, Seer suddenly became serious. "I don't want a plush toy." Then she turned around and left in a huff. Nan froze for a moment, wondering if Seer had really entered her rebellious phase. Not long after, at the teleportation area between the 69th and 68th layers, Ale warned everyone in a low voice, "For this mission, we must not expose our identities. That means we can't use our official authority carelessly. The delegation has 15 members. Each of you will handle 2. Deputy Commander Varuna and I will take care of the rest. It'll be troublesome, but if we handle them ourselves, no one will be able to tell that we were responsible." Before long, a group of people in black began walking out of the teleportation gate one after another. In the next instant, Commander Ale, who had been hiding nearby, rushed forward and cut off the heads of several black-clad figures with one strike. Then she immediately ordered everyone around her to begin the attack. The sudden ambush left the delegation with no time to react. In the end, they were all eliminated in an extremely short time. Before long, the news reached Dantalion, the Demon King of the 69th layer. Since the entire delegation from the 68th layer had been wiped out, They had to notify Decarabia immediately. What made things worse was that the swords used in the assassination were products of the 69th layer itself. Dantalion knew very well that Decarabia would realize someone was manipulating events from behind the scenes, but he wouldn't let the matter end there. Instead, he would use it as leverage to pressure the 69th layer even harder, eventually turning their so-called alliance into a tribute relationship. Dantalion gritted his teeth and roared. "This is definitely Citri's doing. Send a letter to Decarabia immediately. Prepare for war. I'll make that bastard Citri kneel and beg for mercy." Just then, one of Dantalion's subordinates suddenly stepped forward to report that Decarabia's army had already crossed through the teleportation gate. That meant he intended to turn the 69th layer into his vassal. At that moment, Dantalion's subordinates began suspecting that Decarabia himself might have planned everything from the very beginning. Enraged, Demon King Dantalion immediately deployed all his forces to stop Decarabia's invasion. Meanwhile, on the 72nd layer, a subordinate reported the news to Ciri. The 68th layer had successfully invaded the 69th layer. After hearing this, Ciri said, "This is exactly as teacher predicted." Nan said calmly, "Ciri, let's handle this. The chance to profit while both sides wear each other down is almost here. Prepare to deploy our forces. Once the 69th and 68th layers clash, we'll intervene in the chaos. We don't need to fight them head-on. We only need to harass them and draw the attention of Decarabia's army." Ael lowered her head. "Understood. I'll obey." Nan nodded. "Then I'll leave the rest to you." Then Nan added, "One more thing, Commander Ael. Have the merchants on the 69th layer evacuate to the 70th layer." The reason merchants had gathered on the 69th layer was simple. It was safe, and they had been treated well there. But recently, Dantalion had deceived them, and now the 68th layer had entered the picture. This was the perfect chance to break their trust in Dantalion, especially with the 70th layer about to introduce pro-merchant policies. Ael asked, "Wouldn't this require Her Majesty Citri's approval?" "Citri has no reason to refuse," Nan answered. "All she has to do is sit back and let the money roll in." Ael immediately understood. "I see. If everything goes smoothly, Dantalion will destroy himself. Leave the rest to me. I'll proceed as we discussed." After the two commanders left, Ciri suddenly smiled. When Nan asked what she was smiling about, she said she'd thought of a brilliant idea. Ciri said seriously, "While the Legion draws away Decarabia's forces, why don't we directly seize the 69th layer?" "That feels too risky," Nan frowned. "In the end, we'd still have to fight Decarabia's army head-on." Ciri looked up and said, "Let me take the field. I've completed all my lessons, and I've learned quite a lot of the ancient magic he personally taught me." Hearing that, Nan firmly refused. "Now isn't the time for you to step onto the battlefield. Wait until you're a little older." Ciri became unhappy after hearing that. She had already grown so much, so why was teacher still treating her like a child? In truth, with Ciri's current strength, almost no Demon King on the lower layers could deal with her. But even so, she was still a child. If she were badly injured on the battlefield, or worse, killed, then everything Nan had worked for would collapse. So Nan comforted Ciri and told her to be patient a little longer. When they attacked the 68th layer next, he would personally lead the charge. Seeing that Ciri was still upset, Nan could only say, "Once all of this is over, I'll grant you one wish. You can ask for anything you want." Hearing that, Ciri instantly became excited. "Really? Teacher, if that's the case, I want to travel with you." Nan thought about it and realized they had never gone out purely for fun before, so he agreed. Once she received his permission, Ciri became so happy that she danced around like a child. Night quickly arrived. Just thinking about traveling with teacher made Ciri too excited to sleep. To her, teacher was the most precious person in the world. He would always stay by her side. Her teacher and hers alone. If she wanted to go out and have fun with him, then this war had to end as quickly as possible. In that case, perhaps she needed to take action herself, even if it meant becoming a disobedient bad child. Early the next morning, Ciri asked Commander Ael to take her to the battlefield. Ael knew that Her Majesty's swordsmanship had indeed improved greatly, and she had learned ancient magic from Lord Nan himself. On the battlefield, she would undoubtedly be a tremendous asset. But after thinking for a moment, Commander Ael still refused her. "My apologies, Your Majesty. This operation must be carried out by us alone. If Lord Nan hasn't yet allowed you to join the battle, he must have his reasons," Ael said. Hearing that, Ciri looked at her seriously. "Commander Ael, who is the one you serve? If the master you serve is me, then my command should come first. So it's decided. From this point on, I'll fight alongside you. Don't worry, Commander Ael. I'll make sure to protect myself." In her heart, Ciri silently thought, Teacher, just wait for me. I'll finish this quickly and come find you. Meanwhile, Dantalion, the demon king of the 69th layer, stood on the castle wall, holding back the army of the 68th layer. The soldiers on the wall kept firing arrows down at the enemy below. Faced with that dense rain of arrows, ordinary soldiers couldn't get even a step closer. At that moment, the defenders on the wall pressed their advantage and began firing mana cannons at the enemy below. Seeing that terrifying display, countless soldiers backed away, too afraid to charge forward. At this rate, they would never be able to break through the defense line. But just then, a voice suddenly rang out, ordering everyone to retreat. In the next instant, the speaker swung his sword and split the incoming arrow storm apart. He wore golden battle armor and held an enormous broad blade in his hands. Even when facing the blast of a mana cannon, he simply raised both arms and blocked the attack with ease. He was Balthazar, one of Demon King Decarabia's 5-star generals. When the soldiers on the wall realized the enemy had deployed a 5-star general, they immediately fell into panic. Even as Dantalion continued giving orders, they could barely respond. Dantalion cursed, "Useless trash. No wonder you're nothing more than mercenaries bought with money." In the next moment, Dantalion stretched out both hands. A massive green magic circle appeared in the sky. Then, roaring hellfire wrapped itself around Balthazar's body. Using that chance, Dantalion immediately ordered his men to prepare the next wave of attacks. Believing Balthazar had been burned to death, the soldiers quickly opened the gate and prepared to press the attack. They even believed that since the 5-star general had fallen, their soldiers might finally have a chance to fight back. But the moment that thought crossed their minds, a golden greatsword suddenly flashed into view. In the next instant, the blade pierced straight through the chest of the leading general. The attack was so fast that he never even saw who had struck him before he died. Then Balthazar slowly walked out from the smoke. "Your hellfire was only a little warm to me. How pathetic. Did you truly believe power like that could put you on the same level as our great demon king?" Dantalion gritted his teeth. "You arrogant bastard. If not for that armor, you'd already be dead." Balthazar sneered. "This armor is a gift from His Majesty. If you can't even pierce it, then blame your own weakness." But just as he spoke, he suddenly sensed a hint of danger. In the next instant, a massive boulder came crashing down toward him. Fortunately, Balthazar reacted in time and barely dodged it, though he still hit the ground in a rather sorry state. A voice followed. "What a shame. I can't believe you dodged that." Dantalion was instantly shocked. Why was Demon King Seer here? Judging by her actions, she seemed to be helping him. But there was no way she would act without wanting something in return. Seer looked at the man and slowly spoke. "You're 5-star General Balthazar, aren't you?" "Correct." Balthazar rose and smiled. "It's an honor that your majesty remembers my name. But why has the Demon King of the 72nd layer come here?" Seer answered calmly. "I have business here, and you happen to be blocking my way, so I came to deal with you myself." "How young," Balthazar sneered. "You really don't know your place." "Fine then. I'll take the 72nd layer while I'm at it. His Majesty will surely be pleased." Meanwhile, Seer began drawing out the external mana stored in her red hair. Then, as she focused her will, ignition magic began to form at her fingertip. In the next second, a terrifying flaming skull appeared right in front of Balthazar. Balthazar was instantly shocked. "What's going on?" She cast magic without chanting. Damn it. Her attack hasn't even hit me yet, but my armor is already starting to burn. This is completely different from Dantalion's magic earlier. Still, if you think this kind of spell can defeat me, then you're underestimating me. For a child, you do have some skill, but a single spell like that could never. Before Balthazar could finish speaking, Seer had already flashed right in front of him. In the next instant, she cut off Balthazar's head. Then Seer calmly sheathed her sword. That's all? How boring. But to Demon King Dantalion, that scene was utterly shocking, because he hadn't even seen what had just happened. Just then, Commander Ale arrived with her soldiers. When she learned that Lady Seer had defeated Balthazar, she couldn't hide her surprise either. It seemed their Demon King had truly done it. But Ale quickly warned her, "Your Majesty, we can no longer avoid war with the 68th layer." "Why not?" Seer asked back. "If we eliminate all of them, then no one will know, right?" Ale explained, "But this isn't their entire army. The other 5-star generals have surely already noticed what happened here." Seer thought for a moment and said, "Then let's simply make this about the 69th layer. We can say we were just passing through, and that Demon King Dantalion asked us for help." As she said that, she suddenly frowned. "Strange. What's this chill?" Then, Seer gave a calm order. "In that case, let's kill them all and go have a talk with Dantalion. Teacher taught me that if necessary, I should boldly kill or threaten others. So, Commander Ale, I'll leave these soldiers to you." Ale immediately bowed her head. Understood. Everyone, prepare for battle. By Her Majesty's command, we'll annihilate the enemy. At that moment, the soldiers on the wall had no idea what was going on. They only knew that the forces from the 72nd layer seemed to have come to help them. Meanwhile, a spell filled with terrifying mana began forming in Ciri's hand once again. Then, she aimed it at the fortress wall in front of her. In the next instant, a powerful force enveloped the entire fortress. Dantalian shouted in shock and anger. Demon King Cir, why are you attacking us now? Cir answered coldly, without me, you would have been destroyed along with this fortress. Dantalian laughed angrily. Don't make me laugh. I can dispel a spell like this myself. But just then, he suddenly sensed that something was wrong. His mana wouldn't activate. His heart sank. Don't tell him this little girl had already mastered Dispel Magic, Ciri said calmly. Struggle all you want. Either you're buried with this castle, or you serve under me. In return, I'll guarantee the safety of the 69th layer. At that moment, Demon King Dantalian couldn't help thinking that this was the power of the Demon King of the 72nd layer. Perhaps he could use this opportunity. So Dantalian dropped to one knee, paid his respects to Cir, and declared that he would follow her from this point on. Ciri nodded. Good. Then let's formally establish our alliance. Before long, they arrived in the Demon King's meeting room. Ale asked in a low voice, Your Majesty, are you truly certain about this? This is the first time you've gone against Lord Nan's advice. Ciri tried her best to stay calm. I'm a Demon King. Teacher may be a little upset, but even so, I think I handled it fairly well. As she spoke, Ciri's body was still trembling slightly. Just then, Nan pushed open the door to the meeting room. After searching for so long, he had finally found Cir here. Seeing the look on Nan's face, Cir immediately became frightened and tried to explain why she had acted on her own. But before she could say anything, Nan pulled her into his arms. Nan whispered, Thank goodness, I finally found you. As long as you're safe, that's all that matters. Hearing those words, Cir burst into emotional tears. I'm sorry, teacher. I shouldn't have left on my own. Not long ago, Nan had learned from Cain that Cir had actually disobeyed his orders. So he immediately headed for the battlefield, just to confirm whether Ciri was safe. Nan couldn't help wondering if he had done something wrong. After all, this was the first time Cir had ever disobeyed him. If anything had happened to her on the battlefield, Nan would never have been able to forgive himself. Fortunately, when he finally found Cir, she was completely unharmed, and only then did Nan finally relax. After that, Nan told everyone to make room for him, but Demon King Dantalian mocked him instead. In the next instant, the furious Nan released an overwhelming pressure and coldly told that man to get out. Then Nan looked at Ciri and asked her to explain what had happened. Ciri said quietly, I only wanted to help, so I did what I thought needed to be done. But I really handled everything properly. I didn't make any mistakes. I avenged the 69th layer and even killed a 5-star general. Nan listened and said, You did well, but the burden on your shoulders is heavier than you realize. So from now on, you must be more careful. Right now, I don't want you to fully reveal your strength. Information itself is power. The less the enemy knows about your abilities, the better it is for us. Since things have already reached this point, we'll find a way to deal with it. Is this the alliance treaty you signed with Dantalian? So we'll use the 69th layer as our base, and absorb its merchants. That way, Demon King Dantalian will become nothing more than a manager in name. Nan commented lightly. A clean finish, well handled. Then will you agree to my request? Ciri immediately looked up and asked. Nan sighed softly. You mean the trick you mentioned earlier, right? Of course, Cir. But first, we need to deal with the 68th layer. I doubt Decarabia will just sit back and do nothing. Nan then looked at Dantalian. Let's continue the meeting. Dantalian, do you know Decarabia's total military strength? 25,000 infantry, 5,000 cavalry, Dantalian answered. And as far as I know, more than 1,000 mage soldiers. Hearing those numbers, Ciri gently shook her head, which surprised Dantalian. After thinking for a moment, Dantalian finally realized it. Because of today's battle, their numbers should have already been cut in half. Then they should have around 15,000 left. Ciri nodded. Nan continued asking, Is there a way to fight this war while guaranteeing the safety of your base? At that moment, Ciri suggested, We can also use Lady Citri. If we call her over, Nan didn't agree. This will turn into a full-scale war, and losses will become unavoidable. Ciri lowered her head guiltily. Nan comforted her. Don't be too upset. Just treat this as a lesson. The reason everything had gone so smoothly before was because of the countless experiences Nan had accumulated through the game. But now, the plan had already gone off its original course, so it seemed he had no choice but to step in personally. Meanwhile, the Demon Castle on the 68th layer received news that 5-star General Balthazar had been killed and that more than half their forces had been lost. Demon King Decarabia was furious. With that kind of strength, you dared call yourselves 5-star generals? I trusted you, and this is the result you bring me? His subordinates quickly begged, Your Majesty, please give us one more chance. This time, we'll certainly finish off Demon King Dantalion. Decarabia said coldly, Fine. But this time, it isn't just Dantalion. Bring me that girl's head as well. A short while later, 3 generals gathered with grim expressions. They had only boasted earlier to save their own lives, and now they had no idea what to do. To make matters worse, the enemy also had a powerful fighter, like Commander Ale on their side. After discussing it for a while, they decided to strike first. After all, the number of troops in their hands far exceeded the enemy's. But just then, one of their subordinates rushed over to report. The enemy has already come to attack us. A few hours earlier, Nan had arrived at the front line with Commander Ale. At that moment, Nan was honestly uneasy. He wasn't sure whether he could complete this mission smoothly without any support. That surprised Commander Ale. The Lord Nan she knew was always fully prepared and only acted after building a stable plan. Nan understood that as well. But this time, things had already turned bad. He didn't blame Ale. He simply felt that perhaps he still didn't understand Seer well enough. Ale asked, Why would Her Majesty Seer take such a huge risk? Nan answered, Because this method is the fastest and causes the least collateral damage. Ale was shocked. Lord Nan, are you planning to head to the front line alone? Nan shook his head. No, it isn't just me. I also brought 2 humans. I know you still don't fully trust them, Commander. That's why today will be their test. Nan looked at the 2 of them. Now let me see how much you've grown, and whether you are worth keeping. But Nan still felt uneasy inside. Could he really do this? The reason he had easily killed Demon King Andro before was because he had already studied him. He knew he was powerful, but even he didn't know just how powerful he truly was. That was exactly why Nan had stopped Siri from joining this battle. He was certain that after this, there would be no second chance to test things. At that moment, the 2 humans told Nan that they had spotted enemy forces beyond a ridge. There were many of them, and the road ahead was packed with enemy troops. So Nan told the 2 of them to act according to the situation, then said lightly, Let's go say hello. Meanwhile, after discovering enemy movement, 2 generals had already arrived at the valley. But to their surprise, only one person was walking toward them. They immediately judged that this might be a trap. So they decided to hold their position and send a scouting squad to investigate first. However, Nubia didn't believe that at all and decided to see the situation for herself. In the next instant, she spread her wings and shot forward. She mocked them in disdain. What a pair of cowardly losers. How long are you going to sit there? It's only one man. Can't you face him boldly, like I do? Watch closely. I'll show you how terrifying a harpy can be. Seeing this, Nan slowly chanted a spell. In the next instant, countless spikes suddenly erupted from the ground and pierced straight through Nubia's body. The sudden attack left her no time to react. Even at the final moment, she couldn't believe she had died just like that. Seeing this, the remaining 2 generals could no longer stay calm. To think Nubia, who matched their strength, had been killed so easily. Right after that, terrifying mana began pouring from Nan's body once again. In the next second, a massive mana creature slowly appeared behind him. Nan then gave Leviathan an order. Clean this place out completely. In the next moment, the gigantic creature Leviathan entered the battlefield. With overwhelming power, Leviathan quickly swept through the surrounding soldiers. Under its assault, the enemy army began scattering in every direction. Everyone was swallowed by the dust kicked up by the attacks. At that moment, the general on the battlefield stared in disbelief. He had never seen power this terrifying before. Meanwhile, on the other side, Dan and Ellie looked at the battlefield and suddenly felt as if there was no need for them to act at all. But to prove their worth, they had to do something. So Dan gritted his teeth and leaped straight down from the cliff beneath his feet. Meanwhile, the pink-haired girl Ellie began casting wind magic on Dan to boost his speed. With the wind magic enhancing him, Dan closed the distance to several soldiers in an instant. With both speed and attack power strengthened, he easily defeated them in a single clash. Seeing that humans had actually barged onto the battlefield, one of the generals angrily began activating his ability. In the next moment, his body rapidly expanded, transforming into a terrifying, muscular dragon. Faced with that, Nan immediately drew the blade in his hand. Then, he swung a swift slash, striking the dragon directly in the abdomen. Just then, Sira appeared behind Ellie and asked, "Where is teacher?" When she saw the Leviathan Nan had summoned, Sira clapped in amazement. "Maybe one day, I can become that strong too." Ellie quickly said, "Of course you can, Your Majesty. After all, you're the greatest demon king." "I didn't expect a human like you to be so good with words," Sira replied, glancing at her. Ellie carefully asked, "But Your Majesty, does Lord Nan know you're here?" "I came secretly to greet teacher," Sira answered. Then, Sira narrowed her eyes slightly. "But what does that have to do with you?" "I'm sorry." Ellie immediately lowered her head. "I spoke out of turn." Siri stared at her and asked, "Human, you don't have any strange feelings for my one and only teacher, do you?" Hearing that, Ellie was so frightened that she immediately knelt and apologized. "Of course not, Demon King." Just then, Nan spoke in surprise. "Siri, why are you here?" "I came to welcome you, teacher." Siri immediately looked up and said. Nan had already cleared away everything that could threaten Siri, so for her, this was indeed a good chance to gain real combat experience. So, Nan said, "The demon castle in the 68th layer is almost empty now. Seer, take your commander and finish the rest." Then, Nan looked at Dan and Ellie. "Also, the two of you did well. Those 5 years of training weren't wasted. After we return, I'll assign you dedicated missions. Until then, rest properly." With the 68th layer basically conquered, the only thing left was to find that item. Before long, under Seer's assault, the demon king of the 68th layer quickly failed to hold out. Siri said in disappointment, "I didn't expect a demon king to be this weak." "Your Majesty, it's because you've become too strong," Commander Ale explained. "You've mastered swordsmanship and learned ancient magic." "How did Lord Nan ever learn those ancient spells?" At that moment, Ale reminded her. "Your Majesty, Lord Nan said Decarabia must be kept alive." Siri then grabbed Decarabia by the collar and lifted him up. She nodded. "I understand, Commander. As long as I don't kill him, it's fine, right?" Before long, Decarabia had been beaten black and blue, muttering incomprehensible words under his breath. Even Seer hadn't expected a demon king to be this fragile. Then she looked at Ale and said, "Commander, I'll leave this place to you. If teacher finds out I did this, he'll definitely hate me." But while they were still talking, Nan had already pushed open the door and walked in. The two immediately stood properly and pretended nothing had happened, which made Nan sense that something was off. He looked behind them and asked, "The one lying behind you is Decarabia, correct?" Nan continued, "Don't lie. If you did something wrong, you should admit it honestly." Then he looked at Decarabia's miserable state and sighed helplessly. "Siri, I didn't expect you to beat him up this badly. But fortunately, he isn't dead, so I won't blame you." Ale couldn't help asking, "But Lord Nan, why do we need to keep Decarabia alive? He isn't the type to surrender willingly like Dantalion." Nan answered calmly, "I'm not sparing his life. I'm simply using him." Then, Nan looked at Siri. "Siri, you've heard of Starstones, haven't you?" Seer nodded. "Of course, they're a specialty of the 68th layer." Nan continued, "I need to cross-check his testimony with Crowley's information. Only the Demon King himself and his closest aides know the location of the Starstone mine. Since I accidentally wiped out all of his subordinates, I had no choice but to leave Decarabia alive." Ale frowned and asked, "But Demon Kings can't be brainwashed. How do you plan to get the information out of him?" Just then, Citri walked in. "I heard you needed my skill, so I came. This scene is rather interesting." She then complained, "You haven't come to train with me in ages. I dropped everything to rush over here, you know?" The moment Seer heard that, she gave Citri a terrifying look. Citri's heart trembled. There it was again, that gaze. That chilling look in Seer's eyes was exactly why Citri hadn't dared to approach Nan lately. Citri suddenly hesitated. Wait, if she used her ability in front of Seer, would Seer attack her? So Citri urged Nan to take Lady Seer outside first, because she needed to focus while casting her magic. Nan had no choice but to let Seer wait outside for a while. Siri looked confused. "But teacher, how can Citri find the Starstone mine? Isn't she good at fire magic?" Nan explained. "Actually, she has another special ability. Any man who meets her eyes will spend the rest of his life admiring her." That said, the ability had no effect on someone stronger than her, but with Decarabia in his current state, it was perfect for Citri to use. Before long, Citri extracted the location of the mine from Decarabia. "As a reward," she said softly, "I'll make your heart feel warm, though it may sting a little." "Thank you, my dear Citri," Decarabia replied dreamily. After that, Citri told Nan the mine's location that she had obtained from Decarabia. Then she immediately asked Nan whether she would receive any reward. Nan answered, "I was already planning to give you some of the ore. But the condition is that everyone must know the 68th layer was conquered by you. Citri's eyes lit up. Does that mean I can also receive the demon castle on the 68th layer? That wouldn't be bad. Nan immediately corrected her. I only mean that the outside world will believe you conquered it. Getting an entire demon castle without losing a single soldier. Don't you think that's a little shameless? Citri awkwardly said, I thought it was like last time, so I misunderstood. But if we do that, the upper layer demon kings will target me. Nan said lightly, don't worry. I'm here. To compensate you, I'll give you half of the ore. Citri immediately became motivated. Really? In that case, I'm willing to take that risk. Nan extended his hand. Pleasure doing business with you. If I need your help again next time, I'll call you. But just as the two were about to shake hands, Ciri stopped them from the side. Strictly speaking, this matter should have been handled by Demon King Ciri. However, the way Ciri looked at Citri had clearly changed. The next second, Citri suddenly turned and left. Ciri calmly explained. She probably had something urgent to handle. Nan looked at Ciri. By the way, Ciri, about our trip, do you want to handle the post-war affairs first, or should we leave tomorrow? I should handle the affairs first, Ciri answered seriously. After all, I'm a demon king. Nan nodded. Then why don't you try doing it yourself? Just leave the Starstone mine to me. A short while later, Ciri returned to her room. She thought to herself that it had been quite some time since she last held Teacher's hand. She knew she was no longer a little child, and Teacher could no longer treat her the same way he had in the past. But on this trip, when it was just the two of them, she was going to hold Teacher's hand as much as she wanted. Meanwhile, Nan had already brought the stone demon to the mine. Nan needed the stone demon to use his unique ability here to distinguish the ores. He also needed him to scan inside this rocky area. There should be a golden bracelet hidden somewhere within. Nan honestly didn't know why there was a golden bracelet here. But if it was hidden in this place, there had to be some reason. He really had no idea why the game developers had put something like this here. Was it some kind of prank? In any case, even after mining like this, there were still vast resources left. No wonder Decorabia had been able to support an empire with just one vein. And now, half of that income belonged to them. Nan needed to prepare in advance. News that the 69th layer had been conquered would soon reach the ears of the other demon kings. With these mines, he should quickly build an army. From this point onward, continuing to advance without casualties would only become more difficult. At that moment, the stone demon spoke. Lord Nan, I think I found it. There's something unfamiliar nearby. So, Nan cast magic toward the rock wall in front of him. As expected, he retrieved a golden bracelet from inside the rock wall. Its name was the Ancient Gold Bracelet. In the game, this equipment also had the effect of increasing growth efficiency. He simply didn't know how that effect would manifest in this world. At that moment, Nan suddenly realized that he had forgotten to withdraw his mana. In the distance, the stone demon had been pressed down by that overwhelming pressure so badly that he couldn't even stand. Nan quickly apologized to the stone demon. Sorry, from now on I'll be more careful when controlling my mana. A few days later, Nan brought Ciri before Demon King Dantalion and formally signed a contract with him. Once the blood pact was signed, Dantalion would no longer be able to do anything that could harm Ciri. Nan looked at him and said, From now on you'll receive our information at all times. Since you were once a demon king, I trust you can handle that. After everything was settled, Nan praised Ciri for acting more and more like a true demon king. Now all that remained was repairing the demon castle on the 69th layer and moving in. Since the important matters had been handled, it was time for them to get ready to leave. Ciri said seriously, I want to find somewhere quiet with nice scenery and not many people. Nan nodded. All right. I'll find a place before tomorrow. For today, get some proper rest. Then Nan took out the bracelet he had obtained earlier. This is for you. When Ciri held the bracelet in her hands, a happy smile immediately appeared on her face. She said earnestly, From now on, I'll always wear it. So the next day, Nan brought Ciri to the human world. Before that, Nan had already arranged for Dan and Ellie to disguise themselves as adventurers in the human world and take control of the situation in advance. Since the two of them were heading to different locations, both were a little worried. Nan knew this would be difficult, but there was no one here who would recognize them anymore. So he reminded Ellie, You just need to be careful. Don't get involved with scum for no reason. I know, Ellie replied. I'm not that stupid. Nan then handed her a small item. If you run into danger, crush this. It's an alarm device. Once you crush it, the necklace on my side will break as well. Ellie looked helpless. I'm not some troublemaker. What could possibly happen on a peaceful mountain like this? But at that very moment, several bandits suddenly appeared and surrounded her. Ellie looked at them and couldn't help saying, You people don't really look like actual bandits. One of the men explained, "With the country in this state, we don't have much of a choice. Don't you know what happened to the Holy Kingdom? The people at the top have completely lost their minds. They keep destroying villages, claiming they're hunting hidden demons." Ellie explained that she had been trapped in this mountain for 5 years, so she knew nothing about it. The man sighed. "How pitiful. You must have suffered a terrible shock and lost your memory. Why don't you come with us? We'll take care of you." If the Holy Knights heard what you just said, they'd definitely arrest you as a witch. It turned out that the Great Temple had issued a statement claiming that the disappearances in the demon realm, which began 5 years ago, were actually caused by witches hiding in the human world. Because of that, the Holy Knights began searching towns and villages for so-called witches. They burned villages in the name of purification and took children away. Adventurers had now become nothing more than pawns of the Holy Knights. Ellie sensed that something was wrong. The Holy Knights were acting without any clear evidence, yet the adventurers were allowing themselves to be used like this. The man gave a bitter smile. "You still don't understand. This is the Holy Kingdom. Here, everyone must obey the Pope's orders." Meanwhile, inside the temple, the Pope had just finished bathing. The woman looked at him and asked, "You took that long just to bathe? How's the investigation going?" The Pope replied, "Just as you said, I've searched the entire country, and the claws of the demons are everywhere. All of this is thanks to you." The woman calmly answered, "Pope, you're the one who has worked so hard for your country." The Pope looked deeply satisfied. "Thank you. You're the only one who truly appreciates my efforts." And the woman's name was Lily.